The Sound of Music, Robert Wise.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Picture This 1965 year of an upset. This is not the craziest upset. We'll talk about it in a sec, but the year The Sound of Music took down Dr. Zhivago, two big epics going at it, and we have two big epic hosts here to chat about it, myself and my buddy Chad. Chad, how you doing today? Welcome back to Picture This.
I'm doing pretty good. This is kind of fun to think about because, there was a time when you and I were wondering if we were going to be in the same room recording this, as I visited you on your boat.
Yes.
Not too long ago, just like, a week ago?
Yeah, literally just a week ago.
Yeah, and we were like, would it work out? And we were just like, we haven't finished all the movies. We hadn't, figured out how it would necessarily work with the small rooms and all that stuff. So
yeah, if Dr. Zhivago wasn't 9 hours long and we had time to squeeze it in, we probably could have. But I know that was one that neither of us had seen yet, and we were like, "Oh, you come on the cruise in like 5 days, and I was like, "No, it's." I mean, I like to watch everything in one sitting, and I will admit, I took a Audible for my normal routine, and I did watch it in 3 sittings, which is crazy for me.
wow.
But on this boat, you can't get like 4 hours at a time, so I did watch that one in spurts. I promise I will give it as fair a critique as I can. But I want to just jump in really quick what the slate is, just because I always forget sometimes off the top. But the 1965 Oscars, the 5 movies we have are Darling, the one I just said, Dr. Zhivago, Ship of Fools, The Sound of Music, and 1,000 Clowns. So just wanted to get those out there now. But yeah, it would have been a fun thing to record together maybe next year, if I'm in the same circumstances, which, spoiler alert, I will be. We can hopefully maybe try to figure out something. I don't know. Maybe we'll have you on for 2 cruises so we have a little more time. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll figure it out. But I'm still glad to be sitting here with you, like old time sick and chatting movies. I'll just tell everyone, disclaimer too. Chad woke up a little sick this morning. I've been dealing with a back thing, so if you see me kind of like going like this and stretching it out, and you see Chad clearing his throat, just know we are the this is the sick version of Picture Sick, if you will.
I will say I've seen what this man can do on the stage, and he does a lot. So, tweaking your back, I can understand.
Yeah. It just needs some stretching, some physical therapy a little bit. But let's move on to the year itself. I mean, 1965, obviously, we just said the 5 titles. Very interesting time for film. The 60s is kind of when everything changes from golden age to modern movies as we know it. And this is the perfect prime example of it, because you have like these big classic epics. And you have some movies that feel very like kind of almost like 70s black and white indie. This is really a bridge year, and this is quite literally the smack dab middle of the 60s. So it's going to be really fun to talk about. But before we get into the movies, we always like to kind of give a little picture of what the year itself was like, the history, and then we'll also talk about the Oscars and the upset itself just a little bit. But Chad, tell us about the year of 1965.
Sure. The history is Lyndon B. Johnson becomes president. The funeral of Winston Churchill takes place in London. Canada adopts the maple leaf as its flag. Malcolm X is assassinated, and Martin Luther King Jr. marches with activists from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. The Voting Rights Act is signed into law, and 66 ex-SS personnel received life sentences at the conclusion of the Auschwitz trials. British theater critic Kenneth Tynan says "fuck" for the first time on BBC. Vietnam War protesters picket the White House and march on the Washington Monument. Charlie Brown Christmas debuts on CBS. We'll be watching that soon. And Tokyo becomes the largest city in the world.
Wow.
I guess with like population.
Yeah, probably densest and something like that. Cool. Very, very cool history. Anyone born in 1965? I mean, I know there were any notable people born. Anyone died in 1965? And then we can get into some albums.
We have some of those. We have for births, Robert Downey Jr., Dr. Dre. I'm gonna hide the shirt. Joanne Rowling.
Okay.
The Undertaker. Brooke Shields. Charlie Sheen, Chris Rock, Martin Lawrence, Bjork, Ben Stiller, Slash, Sarah Jessica Parker, Shania Twain, Kevin James, Mads Mikkelsen, Melissa McBride, Viola Davis, Ryan Murphy, Brandon Lee, Alan Cumming, Diane Lane, Rob Zombie, Scottie Pippen, Elizabeth Hurley, Chris Novoselic, Kira Sedgwick, Kyle Chandler, Clear Eyes, Full Hearts Can't Lose, Suge Knight, John Cryer, and Frank Grillo.
Wow, so many
And
good names.
I didn't align the shirt with knowing that Joanne was born
It's
here.
okay. It's okay.
Not a great person. Just going to throw that out there.
Yeah.
But deaths: Malcolm X, as stated before; Winston Churchill, as stated before; Nat King Cole; Clara Bow;
Mm-hmm.
Shirley Jackson; and T.S. Eliot.
Clara Bow. I'm trying to think if we gave her our award, Clara Bow, for Picture This, because I always like to kind of shout it out. I'm like, oh, there, Picture This Hall of Famer. Clara Bow, yes, got your award for Wings. So Clara Bow,
Excellent.
yeah, Picture This not Hall of Famer, but Picture This recipient, um, award recipient. Cool. Any albums, Chad, from the year of 1965?
Yeah, okay, so we have at top Highway 61 Revisited by Bob Dylan.
Yes.
We have Rubber Soul by the Beatles.
Yes.
We have, I'm skipping a little bit because I have this one. This is A Charlie Brown Christmas
Oh,
by
that's a nice one.
Vince Guaraldi.
Yeah. Wow. Cool.
Got it from Walmart, actually.
Nice. Nice.
Find good vinyl at Walmart. I have A Love Supreme by John Coltrane. Bringing It All Back Home by Bob Dylan. Help by the Beatles. Otis Blue / Otis Redding Sings Soul by Otis Redding. Pastel Blues by Nina Simone. My Generation by The Who. And The Beach Boys Today by the Beach Boys.
Wow. I feel like it's been a while since you've done a little show and tell for us, Chad. That's very fun.
Yeah.
I love it. It's very funny because like I'm looking at the list of movies I have for 1965, and literally like I had one other movie to put down. Sometimes we like to rattle off other movies from 1965, so I put Thunderball because I've heard of that, James Bond. But Chad, did you have any other movies from 1965 to mention?
Yeah.
Okay,
Three
cool.
down. Help.
Okay.
Thunderball. For a Few Dollars More.
Mm.
And for Best Picture worthy, I put Repulsion.
Propulsion. I've never seen that one. So, okay. So Chad has a few more titles for us. Very interesting year, 1965. As I said, like a bit of a bridge. Let's speaking of bridges. I mean, David Lean, Bridge on the River Kwai, directed Dr. Zhivago, this big epic. Sound of Music was this big epic. The cool thing about 1965 is it was like the two highest grossing movies of the year, each getting 10 nominations, each getting 5 wins. I mean, this was a neck and neck race. Sound of Music and Dr. Zhivago. The reason why is this considered an upset, though. I mean, you see here, they both won the Golden Globes. They were literally neck and neck. Dr. Zhivago, Sound of Music were winning everything, and they were tied for everything. Highest grossing films of the year. Dr. Zhivago did have the BAFTA nomination, which kind of put it over the edge, and Sound of Music missed a writing nomination. And no film had ever won Best Picture without a writing nomination since Hamlet. And then it wouldn't happen again until Titanic in the 90s. So this is a very rarity where you don't usually win Best Picture without a writing nomination. So the fact that Sound of Music didn't get a writing nomination, it was considered the underdog, which is why it technically counts for our year of the upset, even though Sound of Music was a huge film, so I'm not necessarily surprised. I don't think anyone was necessarily surprised that it won, but it did defy a big stat, which is why a lot of people were predicting Dr. Zhivago. Dr. Zhivago and Sound of Music were neck and neck, but people were saying, you know what? Dr. Zhivago got nominated for screenplay, Sound of Music didn't, and you need a screenplay nomination to get Best Picture. Why wouldn't you like be one of the 10 best written movies and then not win? Or why would you win if you're not one of the 10 best written movies? Kind of sentimentality. So Sound of Music did upset Dr. Zhivago in that sense, but otherwise, not really anything crazy in terms of the Oscars themselves. This was the first Oscar ceremony shown in color, which is cool. It wasn't black and white. And William Wyler received the last of his record 12 Best Director nominations for a movie called The Collector. William Wyler still holds that record for 12 nominations. I don't know who's second or who's coming up behind him. I feel like Spielberg and Scorsese have a few more in them. They could probably get up there, but 12 nominations for Best Director is a lot. So William Wyler still holds that record. Otherwise, not really much else to say about the awards. Nothing kind of crazy happened. I mean, even the race, as I said, by the end of it, no one was upset that Sound of Music won, nor that were they thinking it wasn't upset. It was just, it got it without a writing nomination, which has only happened a handful of times. But that's really it. Not a lot to report about the 65 or 66 Oscars. But Chad, any more thoughts before we just dive right into these 5 films?
No, I mean, cool facts there, but
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Chad. You're such a darling. Oh wait, that's the first film. I've been waiting for that segue for weeks. Chad, tell us
Wow.
about Darling, the first film we're going to be talking about. Darling, John
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Schlesinger. I can never pronounce his name, and he's one of the best directors of the '60s. John Schlesinger. You'll do it for me, Darling.
Hey, mispronouncing names is my thing on the show.
It's only because that's the one name I've tried. I've tried so hard, but
um,
no avail.
Darling, directed by John
See,
Schlesinger,
you did
written
it so
by
well.
Frederick Raphael, cinematography by Kenneth Higgins, music by John Dankworth, starring Julie Christie, Lawrence Harvey, Dirk Bogarde, Louis de Villalonga, Roland Curran, Basil Henson, Alex Scott, Brian Wilde, Pauline Yates, and Peter Bayliss. Synopsis: a young British model and actress becomes infatuated with two different older men, and she toys with them both.
Hmm. Yes, very much. I would say a character piece. I mean, there's obviously a plot. There's a whole story. Um, whoa! Now I've got the one with the cough. Yeah, no, it's a longer narrative, but it is kind of just more of like I don't even want to say a character piece as much as it is just like a piece of a glimpse of history and just femininity, like kind of encompassing like what it was like to be a woman at the time, kind of more so than like this specific woman. I don't know. It's very interesting. I haven't seen a film like this in a while, and especially watching so many classic years. I mean, like I said, this is a bridge year, so it's kind of interesting to get films like this that are so like kind of just indie, very raw, very down to earth slice of life. When like we were used to getting these big, long, sweeping epics or these big classic, like last month we covered, I think it was like Shakespeare adaptations and The Red Shoes. These big like big productions, and to see a movie that like this that's so scaled back and stripped down, and honestly caught me off guard when I started it. I'm like, oh Will, that's right, we're back in the 60s, because we've been so used to watching 50s and 40s movies the last few
Yeah.
months, and then like 2015, which we just know modern movies are modern movies. But this took me by surprise, just because I was like, I don't even know, like at first I was like, what is it, what am I even watching? And that's just true for a lot of these movies in this slate. I'm like, wait, what are we watching? Like what is the premise of this? Because I tried to go in blind for a lot of these too, because I hadn't heard of 3 of these before. The only ones I had heard of were Dr. Zhivago and Sound of Music. So I'm curious what you think, Chad, because I described it very poorly. I was like, it's a portrait of a woman at a time, but you'll probably have more insightful things to say.
I don't know about that. I mean, like looking at like trying to find a synopsis for it, it was a little bit difficult, and I feel like that it didn't even encompass like what the whole movie is. But like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's more of kind of like a slice of life kind of movie, I guess,
Yeah.
where it's just kind of like showing this woman on her travels. I
Hmm.
like how you said that, like it talks about kind of like what a woman is like at this time, which it kind of feels like a lot of these movies are kind of like this, about what it was like to be a woman in different times, either being like taken advantage of, or and maybe in this case in Darling, being able to take advantage of other people and like kind of manipulate and toy with, as I said in the description. And just seeing like how far someone could go to get ahead for themselves by using other people, but also like experiencing like different kind of like counterculture type settings and people,
Hmm.
and going out, someone trying to go out of their comfort zone, and maybe not do the normal. You meet a nice guy, become a wife and raise children, but what you're in the middle of like uh the growing, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like the
No, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think counterculture is the word I was looking for earlier that I couldn't find, because it was like it's a glimpse of like femininity, but at a very specific point. Like I said, like this is a bridge. I'll keep saying bridge, 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 because this really feels like such a change to like the classic 50s and even early 60s, where it's like, um, we're talking about like King and I, where it's like this prim proper getting to know you, like
right.
we've talked about a lot of these movies where it is that, and we saw a little bit of it last month with like Johnny Belinda, Red Shoes. There were definitely some changes, but it's really cool to see like women specifically at this point, because I think also film was changing at the time, so you had more of a play area to kind of go bigger and broader with like the counterculture topics, and also just sexuality, sensuality. It was risque probably at the
Yeah.
time, but this is where films were headed to, because the 70s is all about this. I mean, 1969, John Schlesinger wins best picture for Midnight Cowboy, which is an X-rated film. So
Mhm.
it's one of those things where it's really cool to kind of see the tide shifting. I think the reason why I'm kind of like at a loss of words about the story is because I don't think it's really necessarily about that different plot beats as much as it is just kind of looking at this kind of culture,
Yeah.
and glimpse of just womanhood, and this one particular woman's kind of journey as an encompassing of like all women at this time, kind of the idea of being sexualized but wanting to kind of take your independence and have your independence, but also still enjoying the sex of it all too, and wanting to like take part in these things that are normally taboo that are becoming more widely accepted. I think that's what's really cool about this movie, but also with Julie Christie specifically just being the star vehicle, because she's not only the lead of this, she's the lead of Dr. Zhivago, which is one of the biggest
Yeah.
movies of the year. And like I think we saw this with like Audrey Hepburn with Breakfast at Tiffany's around the same time. This kind of acted as like that star vehicle for her, where we think there's a lot of movies like that nowadays that come out that it's like this is like the big breakout for this star. Like I think of like Barbie and like I, Tonya being like Margot Robbie's movies that have now put her on the map in just two films, maybe Wolf of Wall Street if you want to count a third. Now she's like a household name when she was nobody 10 years ago, and I think that's really cool that like this is kind of that for this generation. It's like this is one of the generation's biggest stars. This is her big coming out party. She's in all these movies all at once, and she has like a huge year. And I think it's cool to kind of see that movie star quality emerge to where like I think it's more fun talking about like Darling's place in history as like a star making vehicle, as an examination of counterculture, than it is just its own entertaining film, because
Yeah.
everything we've seen in it we've seen before, and we'd see later, sex and relationships and love triangles, and just different, taking advantage of happenings and all that stuff, and there's royalty in this too, and they dive into like the British fashion scene. I feel like just a little bit of everything to kind of just give you a perfect glimpse of like what the times were like as a woman in Britain with like this type of lifestyle, and I think there's value to that in the place of history, for cinema, even though it's not like my particular favorite type of movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like definitely like more of an experience movie. Like you're just kind of like living in the world with her. I
Mm-hmm.
like kind of like the style of filmmaking that's used. Like it's definitely like shot in a different way, with like some good music and kind of vibes going on and whatnot. And I like the like you're talking about like the emerging, like we were talking about counterculture, but also like becoming a little bit more risque, and like you don't feel like you have this like censorship like hovering over you, and that you can like be a little bit more out there and talk more about like sex and things like that and movies. And I think we kind of like think about the 70s as like the big boom of that, but like as you see with like this whole slate, a lot of this kind of started somewhat more like in the 50s and especially in the 60s, with being a little bit more out there, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think we're on the same page that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't love watching the movie, but like it's one of those things where I did find it interesting, and I did like enjoy the performances and a lot of the filmmaking. I think I just didn't really like the character all that well,
Yeah.
because essentially like she's it kind of reminded me a little bit of Alfie, actually, the movie
Mm-hmm.
that we
Yeah.
watched, because
Actually,
he's
that's a
such
great
a
comparison. Great comparison.
yeah, because he's such a big womanizer in that, and here she's a manizer.
A man-eater make it
There you
work
go.
hard.
A man-eater. And you kind of just, especially like that guy Robert, you just kind of feel bad. But then ultimately he gets his revenge on her and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I like Schlesinger as a director, so I'm interested to see if I like his other movies because
Yeah.
I think I like the direction of the movie more than I liked the overall story
Mhm.
and stuff of it.
Yeah, I don't think there's much else to add. Yeah, it's one of those things where if you vibe with this type of movie, I think you're gonna vibe with it. You also like, yeah, you made up a good point. Like the character is not always the most likable or the most agreeable, but like you still, I think because the performance is so good, you also still want to at least kind of like follow her and get invested in her life. And I love that. I think one of the best things that we talk about on the show with like Licorice Pizza, for an example, like what the
Mm.
film is not necessarily an avocation as much as it is just like a examination. And I
Yeah,
think that's kind of the case here too. It's like we're not necessarily supposed to agree with her. I do think still
yeah,
like a lot of the men she's with are still cads that like make it a little easier to sympathize with her, but at the same time, like that there are things she does that are not agreeable, but it's also the fact that like a character can make these unagreeable choices. That is
exactly.
something that was not necessarily normal because like it used to be just like women were this way in film. And it's really going to be really interesting to look at like other movies that are like more traditional in the slate. That's why the slate's so weird because it's like how do you rank this amongst like Dr. Zhivago, which we'll talk about next, which is like this big sweeping epic that kind of has that more classic like Gone with the Wind nature, and
Yeah,
then not on the racism way, but like this being like the
right.
total opposite of that, where this is more like a Rachel, where I'm like this indie drama about this
Yes.
woman who's just kind of like, you know, and it's shot in this interesting way and filmed in this interesting way. So I'm very interested to check out Midnight Cowboy because I have it on Criterion. I haven't watched it. I'm
Ooh,
saving it for the show, but I'm like really excited just because I feel like I get a glimpse of what his whole aura and his style is, but I feel like he's going to refine it even more because like that's the one that wins Best Picture. So he
yeah.
obviously is cooking here, but he's going to be really like serving the food come that film. So I hope it's better than this because I like this, but I think that's going to be even better. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess we can say like, it's good that women started to get the freedom to be just as sleazy as men sometimes.
Gosh. Okay, sure. Don't quote me on that one. No, you're right. But no, yeah, just the
Sometimes.
opportunity. Yes, yeah, sometimes. But yeah, the opportunity for women to just be expressive, like have expression
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just have choice, which is important. We're pro-choice here on Picture This. But yeah, Darling, nominated for 5 Oscars, wins 3 of them. So it has a good day. I mean, it wins 3 out of the 5 it's nominated for, and it wins 2 big ones. It wins screenplay, best original screenplay. It wins best actress for Julie Christie, of course. And then best costume design, black and white. But it's also nominated for best picture and John Schlesinger for best director. I think that's the best I'll get his name today. I'll have to work on it. But as I said, this episode we're both kind of feeling a little under the weather, so we might need to be seeing the doctor later. But why don't we see a different doctor right now? Why don't we talk to Dr. Zhivago? And well, we're not going to talk to Dr. Zhivago. We're going to talk about him. But Chad, does an apple a day to keep Dr. Zhivago away? You'll let us know.
I need to eat more apples, I guess. Dr. Zhivago, directed by, we've talked about him before, David Lean.
Yes.
Written by Robert Bolt. Cinematography by Freddie Young. Music by Maurice Jarre. Starring Omar Sharif, Julie Christie, Geraldine Chaplin, Rod Steiger, Alec Guinness. Throughout this movie, I was sitting there like, use the force, Zhivago. Tom Courtenay, Siobhan McKenna, Ralph Richardson, Rita Tushingham, and Klaus Kinski. Synopsis. In the heart of the Russian Revolution, a passionate love develops between a doctor/poet and a young woman, but hardships stand in their way of happiness.
There you go. Third David Lean film I believe we've covered here. I'll have to check the books. I
What was
know
the
for
first?
sure. What was that?
What was the first?
Well, so we covered
Lawrence of Arabia.
I think Bridge on the River Kwai and Live Lawrence of Arabia
Okay.
are the two
Right.
winners. But I'm curious if there was another one that we like. Did he do the Great Expectations that we covered? Maybe not. Yes, the Great Expectations from 1946 was also him. So we've
Oh,
covered him now 3 times. This is the 4th time we are covering David Lean, and I think that's what's so interesting about this is like had I not seen those movies, I'm wondering if my reaction to this would be any different, just because we've seen now David Lean direct some of the biggest epics of all time. And this is also one of the biggest epics of all time, but it's very interesting because it's a very different type of epic than like Lawrence of Arabia and Bridge on the River Kwai and Great Expectations. Even I think it's a little bit more Great Expectations than the other two, but it's just very interesting because I don't know if I would have liked this more or less having seen this as my first David Lean picture,
Mm.
as opposed to my fourth, for example. But I'm curious, Chad, what do you think of Dr. Zhivago?
Yeah, I'm kind of like on the fence about it, but I think it's just because like I know that it's a super well directed movie. I like the story, like the love story, and all this stuff with it. I like how it reflected history and like the hard times that people live through when you have like feuding uh, parties in a society, and like just like people are just like outright dying all over the place. It's like insanely cold, and like the whole movie you just want to, like, when you see like the frost on their beards and stuff, you just want to go take a hot shower for them. Um, but there's also other issues that I had, just and it's hard because it's about like real people, so
Mm,
it's not like you could just paint over their life and be like, let's do this differently because,
right.
they made certain choices in their lives, but for the movie, we want people to feel better about it. So let's change it. But,
Mm,
I just had issues with the choices that certain people made in the movie. But ultimately, I did think it was like, a good sprawling epic. I don't think it's as good as Lawrence of Arabia, but I did like it. It's just
mm.
I had some issues with the choices. Did you want me to go into that, or did you want to?
No, you can. I mean, again, I'm trying to formulate my own opinion as I'm
Okay,
listening to you, because what I do like about it is the way it looks. I mean, you kind of
yeah,
touched on it. We could talk about that first because it is, and it sucks because I know like a lot of people will be like, well, it should be more than just looks, like style over substance. But I'm also like, no, but like a movie has to have style as well. Like that's
yeah,
why we watch a movie and we don't read a book. That's why we don't just sit down with the screenplay. It's a visual medium. It's a motion picture. So in that sense, I'm like, no, it's gorgeous to look at. As you said, like all the like snow effects and just the way you can like really feel like you're transported. I think that's his biggest asset as a filmmaker, is like you really feel like you're transported to that place. None of
yeah,
it feels like Hollywood. None of it feels manufactured in a fake way. Like Bridge on the River Kwai, I felt like I was actually in those like marshes, and I felt like that bridge was actually in front of me. And when they destroyed it, like that was an actual bridge they were destroying. That wasn't half-assed. And then like obviously Lawrence of Arabia, all those beautiful desert shots and just everything about that movie is so gorgeous that it's really cool to see him kind of like rally up the usual suspects. Not just on the acting side, because you have like Alec Guinness, who he obviously won the Oscar for Bridge on the River Kwai. You have Omar Sharif, who was in Lawrence of Arabia. It's kind of like him kind of rounding up all his best actors. But you also get his same cinematographer, Freddie Young. You get John Box, who's his production designer. You get Maurice Jarre, which is the musician. So like you have a lot of people. Robert Bolt, who's the writer. A lot of these people that he worked with specifically on Lawrence of Arabia, kind of coming back for one last ride. It would be like if after Denis finishes Dune, he like gets Hans Zimmer and a few of the other guys and is like, let's make one more other movie, and it's like not as good, but because it's the same people, it's like you gotta go see it. It's appointment viewing.
yeah,
This is like the dream team working together once again. um so I think the way it looks is just spectacular, and I think it's one of those things where I'm like, I almost just wish that the story itself, and the love story specifically, because this is a love story, it's marketed as one, but I've always felt like the love story when I'm watching it doesn't feel like the main focus. In a way it
yeah,
is, but it's not. Like I almost feel like I I I at first didn't even realize it was a love story. I knew it was supposed to be, and then all of a sudden I was like, wait, no, okay, it is a love story. It's just like it feels much more interested in the history and stuff, and I wish they could just like dive into that more instead of trying to like force this love story upon us. Also, because I like Julie Christie a lot in Darling, I don't love her as much in this. I don't think she's given as
mm,
much to do here. I actually think all the women are kind of downplayed a little bit, like Geraldine Chaplin as well. Like I honestly wish they had a little bit more to do agency wise as characters,
yeah,
not as performers. But I think that's the thing, is like a lot of the men really stand out in this film, which is important because like they're the historical figures that they want to tell the story of. But also like if you're making a love story, I feel like just it was just imbalanced in that sense, and I think that's where I kind of struggled with it. It was just like this love stories can be told on epic scales. I mean, we saw Gone with the Wind. There's a lot of problems in Gone with the Wind, but the problem is not the love story there,
Right.
and it is this big sweeping romantic thing. We've seen long epic love stories. Titanic, we haven't talked about it on this channel, but like it's one of our favorite movies of all time. So you can tell a love story on an epic scale. It's just, does this love story warrant this epic scale, and does it take away from the stuff that is more interesting in the movie? But then, do you have a movie if you don't have that love story? And then it just makes you wonder if they could have done a little bit more with the love story to just make it more impactful, to make it feel like one of those like necessary pieces of American culture, where it's like, or I guess British culture, because David Lean's British, where it's like, no, you have to watch this movie. It's one of the greatest love stories of all time. It's not. It's one of the greatest movies about love of all time, but it's not one of the greatest love stories of all time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, how they do it is kind of interesting, a little strange, because like the first part of it, it feels like they're mostly focusing on Julie Christie, and you're like, is this even about Dr. Zhivago?
Yeah, it doesn't
And
even
then
show up yet. Yeah.
and then it completely switches to Dr. Zhivago, and then you forget about Julie Christie for a very long time. And then I'm almost like, is she even ever going to show up again? Like, what is this movie? And then, she does show up, and that becomes like the rest of the movie is them trying to re-experience their love and stuff. But it's only after he goes with his family, his wife, Tanya, and his son Sasha, and then I call him Grandpa Joe because he looks like Grandpa Bucket from Willy Wonka the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
But the grandpa or whatever, I guess that's her dad maybe. Anyways, they're all traveling together, and it's such a crazy like trek that they take on this train that like it's really kind of scary, just the way that they have to go on this train, and it feels like they could die at any moment just trying to get back to his like home, his like old home or whatever. And then it's so cold, and you're trying to take care of your wife and your son. And then like, I mean, it's also hard because that they do jump time and stuff, but it kind of feels like he's, still trying to make sure that his wife and his son are taken care of. And then he completely abandons that to go be with this woman that he loves. Like, I get it. It's a love story. Like, that's the one love that you found, and you ended up, in a circumstance where, oh, damn it, if only it wasn't for this damn wife and kid that I have to take care of. But my love is over here. And it's like, you have a responsibility now. Like, I understand, like, oh, what if I would have ended up with that one person? But it's like, you can't just then decide, I'm just going to abandon everything in my life, all the people that depend on me to go, be with this one person. And then when he makes those choices, like, he doesn't end up with either of them, and then ends up dying of a heart attack and stuff. So I guess, if you want to look at Dr. Zhivago as the villain of his own story, you can see that, he doesn't even end up with anyone. It's kind of sad, but like, I don't feel as bad for him. I feel more bad for his wife and his son that he left, when she wrote him a note that said, and your son Sasha cries every day because his dad abandoned him. And then he goes, when the one guy who comes up, like, I get it, it's a bad guy who sexually assaulted the woman that he loves. I get it. That's very, very bad. But he says, in this crazy predicament that you probably can't leave Russia unless I help you, he says no, even though he could go see his wife and son, and he doesn't do it. And I'm sorry, it's just, I'm a dad.
Yeah.
And so I just feel very icky about this whole situation. Just really upset me. But I know it's history. Like, it's not, this isn't on David Lean to, maybe he could have portrayed it in a different way. I don't know if there's like some other, maybe if you give more, like, showed us them in Paris or something like that, like living a good life without Dr. Zhivago, but they just kind of like throw it like, they're in Paris, and then we just spend the rest of the time with Dr. Zhivago. Maybe if you tried to like spread it around, you wanted to be like a true epic where it's like you get to see all the different perspectives, and that's what you're using the 3+ hours time for, is to show us like what Sasha's doing. Like, maybe show us a scene of Sasha kind of grown up or something like that. Like, I just like, it feels weird that the movie just kind of forgot about Sasha. It said, oh well,
Yeah.
he's really upset,
Uh-huh.
and that's it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I
No,
wrong?
no, you're not wrong. You make so many good points. And I also think it's interesting because, like, she does have multiple different guys in her life throughout the whole film. I mean, like, it starts with kind of like Rod Steiger's character kind of pursuing her. And then, like, you do have, Tom Courtenay's character, as you were talking about, like, pursuing her. And then you get to Dr. Zhivago as, like, kind of like the forbidden love of it all. But I'm like,
Right.
honestly, by that time, like, I think the other two, while maybe not as romantic, I guess, are much more interesting dynamics, and I think the interesting performances as well. Omar Sharif is great as Dr. Zhivago, but I also feel like, like Rod Steiger for me was a big surprise to me, just because he's only in a few scenes, key scenes, but the scenes he's in are very good and very powerful, and the dynamic is not healthy, obviously, but there's a real passion behind it, for better or worse. I think it's interesting because, like you said, like it starts with her story, then it shifts to Zhivago. But by the time we got to Zhivago, we've already gone through two suitors already. That it just feels a little like not disorganized, because I mean, again, it's history and we're just kind of chronicling the events, but it doesn't feel like it understands exactly what the focus is. And I don't necessarily know if there's something propelling the action of this film, like what is propelling this story necessarily, because you keep jumping back and forth between him, and like they are together, they're in love, but she's also been with this other young rebel, and Alec Guinness is in the mix as well. So I just feel like there's a lot going on, that it still feels like it's well thought out, it still feels well meticulously crafted, but I just also don't necessarily know what is the driving force of this narrative, because the love story just isn't that for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just feel like it's not as much focused on the war. There is war going on, but like there aren't enough war sequences to where it's all like anchored in the war stuff, and then like everything else is tertiary. Like I really just don't know. I know what the focus is, but I just don't think it's enough to propel this, especially on this epic scale. Like I do think if this was, and I hate to complain about length because I love long movies, but like 2 hours, and like you really kind of made the love story the prime sole focus, and really, really, really honed in on that, and prioritize that. I think the priority is the thing. It's like, what are you prioritizing in this story? Whose story are you prioritizing? And how much do you want to talk about the time and the background? Or how much do you want to let that be a background to something better, which is the love story? But the thing is, I don't think it goes strong enough in either direction, if that makes sense. Yet, it's still one of the best looking films of the 60s. So, like, how can I argue with that when I could just turn off the sound and still like this more than most of the movies in this slate? And that's where I'm so conflicted about it. And why I'll just tell you right now, like, this slate is frustrating for me because I feel like there are some movies that are easier to watch but don't affect me at all whatsoever. And then there's movies like this where I love watching it because it's gorgeous and stuff, but I'm also like, there's so many issues. Like I have so many things I can't wrap my head around. But I'm also like, I'd probably rather watch this than a lot of other films just because it's gorgeous, and I love the acting. The acting is so good across the board. Even Omar Sharif, which I kind of downplayed, he's still really good at it. It's just I think the other two, just their performances, their characters are more interesting to me. So
Yeah.
so many different thoughts.
Yeah, it's just interesting, like when you go through, when you do a show like this and you go through all these movies and then you come to ones that are like, like landmarks in a way, like they're films that you go, all right, I know I'm going to watch this movie, like Gone with the Wind, like we've brought up before. And I know like its reputation, and then you watch it and then you go, am I okay to not like this? Like, I know, like
Yeah.
it's,
Do I have permission? Yeah.
do I have permission? Exactly. It's like, uh, maybe I need to watch it again, kind of a deal. But I just don't know about, is this the movie that so many people laud as like one of the best movies or whatever. And I mean, maybe that is the thing, is that sometimes you just need to revisit movies and stuff. But honestly, it's just interesting that you and I both have, because a lot of the times we differ, but here it feels like we're on the same page and that we both had issues, but also recognize the talent that went into making this,
Oh
but
yeah.
maybe not one of the best stories or the best constructed movies overall from like a story perspective. And you know, going into this, I had a certain ranking, and it's not hasn't changed. I thought maybe the conversation about this would change it a little bit,
Yeah.
but it hasn't. So
Well, yeah, and the thing is, like, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, honestly, this movie, where I have it in the ranking, I don't think I'm changing it, only because again, like I keep thinking of certain images in this movie, and I'm like, how do you do that? Like, it's one of those movies that makes you want to like just like craft cinema, but I'm also like, I want to just craft a better narrative around it. But also, like I was saying at the beginning, if this was my first David Lean film, I think I'd like it a lot more because I'd just be so swept up in it. But I've seen him do Lawrence of Arabia, I've seen him do Bridge on the River
Right.
Kwai, and those are movies where I'm very invested in what's going on, and I think it understands its focus. It has a through line, and even Gone with the Wind, which we talked about, the racism sucks. The characters are not likable, but it's very clear that that is a love story, and they make that the primary focus. That is the
Yeah.
through line, and I feel like it's very prominent, as toxic as it is. And I feel like that's the difference with this. Is like I just don't feel like the love story. It just doesn't feel like it warrants a 3-hour film. At least the love story specifically. Like obviously the events do. There's enough to fill 3 hours, but I just don't know if that is the primary focus. If you needed that much time, because then all the other stuff starts to like become more interesting, and then you just kind of want it to take those inroads, and like honestly there are times where certain subplots that come on, I'm like, I want to follow that, like let's keep going down that road, but then they kind of try to keep forcing it back to this main romance. But
Yeah.
it's very interesting, and I think with a long film too, like a prologue in a 4-hour film is only 30 minutes, but when you're watching a movie and you've only watched 31 minutes of it and he's still not there, it's like, whoa, it's jarring. Like when I rewatch this, it might be better because I know what to expect now. I know
Yeah.
what the structure is. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. The question you brought up, like you said, there's a shot that you couldn't. Was it like somewhere around, like when he's kind of like, having like nightmares about not being able to get back to his wife and son?
What do you mean, like the
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you
normal?
said that there was like a shot that you were like, I don't know how they did that.
Well, yeah, well, just a bunch of like honestly, it's the scale of it all too. Like
Okay.
there's just like again, like a lot of the snow sequences specifically. I'm like just getting that cinematography and just getting the extravagance of it, and like that ice palace and stuff like that, like the
Yes.
palace itself. Like I think it's more like that, just like constructing something so gorgeous and beautiful. When like nowadays they just put everything in a room with a green or blue screen. It's like
Yeah.
movies like this are ones I want to show to like. I hate to say it because I do a whole podcast about it, but I want to show Kevin Feige and be like, bro, look, you can do this. John M. Chu, you can do this. Like,
Yeah.
there's certain things that I want to be like, guys, look what you can do. There's snow. I guarantee somewhere on this planet there is snow. You can just use that. But again, I'm starting to get into like film bro pompous arrogance right now, so I'll cut it while I'm ahead. But what was the shot you were talking about though? The nightmare one?
I was just thinking about like the one, well, especially, specifically, I forgot about like the use of lighting in this, like how they always have like Zhivago's face will be all black except for like his eyes, and then I'm just like, whoa, almost like I guess like he's has like a focus on her or something like that. But like they had like one where when he kept calling out for Tanya and Sasha, and like there was like a circle around his face, and just the way they like shot certain things I thought were kind of interesting. But I was really just trying to guess like what you were talking about because I thought you said something before.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't anything specifically that I was like,
and
making an example of. Just in general, like there were shots in this thing that I was just like, whoa,
okay.
Yeah.
And then
oh, God bless.
And then the other thing was did you, probably not because this is a weird thing to think, but before I knew what this movie actually was, just going off of the title and a very specific poster, maybe if you find it you can display that one, but it's a poster it's like a white poster, and like they're like kind of like holding each other, but he's like more prominent in the poster. And then like when you showed the graphic of the Oscar stuff earlier, and it had like the Dr. Zhivago and there was a swoosh with the Z, I was like, is this a pirate movie?
I didn't think that.
I wasn't sure if this was a pirate movie or not.
No, I didn't think that, but it does have like that kind of like Zorro. I think it's because that Z kind of looks like Zorro. I think that could be it's like the shoo shoo shoo. I see.
And then, but there was the one poster. So I thought maybe not like necessarily like a pirate movie, but there was one poster with is a bunch of horses going around them and stuff. I thought maybe this was an action movie. and turned out it was just a war movie.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, I love that though. Like, I love that like a movie like this is so canonically ingrained in history. It's like AFI top 100 and stuff like that. But like, neither of us knew what it was, and I think that's kind of cool that like we could still discover things because like
Yeah,
it's never too late to discover classic cinema and
yeah,
like feel like it's never too late, and I love that. I love that not everyone has to have known what Dr. Zhivago was, have seen Dr. Zhivago. I think because it didn't win, it's not going to be as popular as something like Sound of Music, where it did win, and like everyone knows Sound of Music.
right.
It plays every Thanksgiving, every Christmas on TVs, household nationwide. But we'll get to that in a sec. But Dr. Zhivago, 10 nominations, 5 wins. It wins Best Writing, Adapted Screenplay, Best Original Music Score. That I agree with. It's beautiful. Art Direction, Color, of course, Cinematography, Color, Costume Design, Color, all those bangers, obviously. It's nominated, though, for Picture, Director for David Lean, Supporting Actor for Tom Courtenay, and Best Sound and Best Editing. So, Chad, I will say, this has nothing to do with Dr. Zhivago, this segue, but I'm just going to take us back to what you were talking about earlier with the cruise, because you helped, you brought your family on and cruised with me, and you helped make my month. It was such a great month having you guys on, and really made me so smiley. But now, Chad, you could definitely say though, when you and I were on this boat together, this was quite a ship of fools, wasn't it?
I was just hoping. I was like, he's not going to call us a bunch of fools, is he?
No, me and you together specifically. It was a ship of
Sure.
fools, of course, because the two of us are on there and we're fools. I don't know.
Right.
I was like, you can't live on a boat and not make a segue about your boat when talking about a movie
Of
about a ship
course.
of fools, where literally the whole premise is just a bunch of people sitting around on a boat talking.
I mean, I couldn't watch this movie without thinking of my time on the Disney Wish. So, Ship of Fools, directed by Stanley Kramer, written by Abby Mann, cinematography by Ernest Laszlo, music by Ernest Gold, starring Vivian Lee, Simone Signoret, Jose Ferrer, Lee Marvin, Oscar Werner, Elizabeth Ashley, George Segal, Jose Greco, Michael Dunn, Charles Corvin, and Heinz Rushman. Synopsis: A voyage on a cruise ship introduces different persuasions of people from 1930s society.
There you go. Yeah, so Ship of Fools, another one from a director who we've covered a bunch of his films. He's a Hall of Famer, Stanley Kramer. We chose Judgment at Nuremberg and Defiant Ones as our best pictures in their respective years. He also did Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. So we're quite well versed with Stanley Kramer at this point. I believe he did 1 or 2 other ones we've covered. He's just directed a lot of best picture nominated films, but this is definitely not like one of his like most renowned or most notable or most known ones. Like this is one that I had no idea what it was about. And honestly, it was kind of fun when like I found out it was just like a bunch of people on a ship sailing from one place to another, and just like all these little vignettes, all these little moments, this like ensemble piece. I was like, whoa, it's like I'm at work. But yeah, I'm very interested to hear what you have to say, Chad, about Ship of Fools. What were your thoughts on this one? Because this is a blind watch for you as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't watch it in the same way you did because I don't live on a ship, but I did go to the ship, so I still had a lot of, very kind of like, you know, memories, like nautical memories
Mm-hmm.
of, being on a big boat
Mm-hmm.
and, seeing a bunch of different kinds of people and having different kinds of experiences and stuff. So, it's funny because I didn't watch this all the way through before I left for
Mm-hmm.
the cruise. So I started this before going on the cruise, and then I kind of rewatched a lot of it after because I had
Yeah.
forgotten like some stuff that happened earlier. And I did a full rewatch after the cruise, and I like this one. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed this one,
Yeah.
and I wasn't sure if I was going to because it feels like a very like different kind of style than the other movies that we've talked about thus far,
Yeah.
and that it's kind of like a very like Robert Altman style, showing a bunch of different stories all within like this one set of circumstances that they're all on the ship. um there's no like, well, I was gonna say there's no like murder mystery like there is in Gosford Park,
No.
but
No.
there is a death.
Yeah.
People, a
Pretty
couple
dramatic one. Yeah. Yeah.
a couple people die on the ship, during the voyage. And I honestly, I mean, I liked some stories more than others, but I think I liked pretty much every story on it. I liked seeing a lot of different types of people, not only telling their own stories, but like coming together to interact. You
Hmm.
see, like, kind of like a very, I mean, and it also like goes into like even like what we're, the relevance to today, like where you have um someone bringing up these, like, because this takes place in the 30s.
Yeah,
Um,
like Nazi
it's like,
Germany. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like people, coming up with like these ideas of like, a guy just speaking very frankly at the dinner table, the captain's dinner table, about like, what they're gonna do with the Jews and stuff like that, and just like coming up with like these ideas. It's kind of feels like a very what you would talk about like with like, kind of like Charlie Kirk style rhetoric of today.
Mm,
Just like thinking about like, people bringing up ideas and going, what's the problem with bringing up this idea of, what are we going to do with illegal immigrants, or what are we going to do with this type of people, that type of people, and stuff like that. And then, they go and they have lines where it's like, like only like, I think only Jewish guy on the ship or whatever is like, where they kind of ostracize him and put him to the side of the ship. He's like, what are they going to do? Kill all of us? And then like right after he says that, you see like the little person, I forget his name, but
Michael Dunn is the actor. Yeah.
the actor, yeah, but I forget like the character's name. But you see his face, and there's just kind of like a silence there, and his reaction, and you kind of feel that, like knowing what you're just like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like just like what people thought. Like it's such a crazy idea of like the Holocaust and like what actually would go on to happen, and like I feel like, I don't know if like we're there today, certain level, but it feels like we're on a very like dangerous kind of path with certain rhetoric that people would have about people today, and
Mhm.
even like a rise of, anti-Semitism that's still going on today with,
Yeah.
certain things that are happening in the Middle East and everything, and just how dangerous rhetoric can lead to very real actions that are taken. And it's just like, how freech freech speech should be free, but also we have to be careful in like what that speech can actually cause to happen
Yeah.
if the wrong people and take it literally and actually go forward with actions and stuff. And yeah, I found like a lot of this movie to be very interesting, in like the stuff that it portrays with that. It also has like a guy whose wife is Jewish, and he gets ostracized by like a connection with her, and then he like, kind of shames them all. Oh, and my favorite part of the movie was actually the love story. Like we just talked
Yeah.
about Dr. Zhivago and how maybe the love story didn't fully work for us. And then here, Ship of Fools, I think it was my favorite, well, not my favorite love story of the entire slate, but
No.
one of,
Yeah.
because I love the what is like this, not Spanish. Was she a Spanish like princess? Uh,
Uh, she's known as La Condesa, so I
yeah,
believe maybe Cuban,
Cuban. That's
maybe.
right.
Yeah.
Like a Cuban princess or Cuban like royalty or something.
Hmm.
And then you have the ship's doctor.
Yeah.
And he's about to leave. He has like a heart condition that he kind of hides, but and he's got his own thing like Dr. Zhivago had, where he left his family to come, work on the ship and stuff. And I mean, that might not seem like the worst thing in the world, but there seems like there's problems.
Hmm.
And so obviously he has like a whole love story there. And I feel like because you never meet his family, it's a little bit different,
Yeah.
where you can kind of get more invested in the relationship between them. And I really did. I like both of those performances. I thought they were just really like they were really convincing. They had that uh chemistry.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
uh and yeah, that's one that I really liked. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like a before sunrise.
Right, where you meet someone, hit it off, and then your time with them is gone in a
Yeah.
flash, you know? Yeah. But
Whereas
sadly because he dies, but also because, it's just like they weren't bound to be together forever anyway. Because like again,
exactly.
and this is
He's
something
going to
that's so
jail. So
yeah, this is so true with ship life too, is that like you know, and I see it mostly with like the kids clubs on board where like these teenagers bond for 4 days and then they're like on the last night they're like, oh my gosh, can I have your Snapchat? Like we're never gonna see each other again. These 4 days have been the best 4 days of my life. But I'm like, you know what though, it makes sense because when you're confined to like such a tight area and you're of a certain age and you're in a part of your life where maybe you are craving that, you know, companionship, it's really nice to kind of find someone that you can connect to, even if it's just for a few conversations. And I get that with guests all the time and just other fellow crew members. Sometimes, you know, you'll just have like a brief little interaction or conversation, but that conversation could make your day. And that's kind of like the most cheesy thing to say, but it's like, you never know who's struggling and who could just use someone to talk to. And especially on
Yeah.
a ship where like, you're never going to see these people again. You're only there for a little bit limited amount of time. And then you both go about your own lives, your own ways. Obviously for them, it's very different circumstances also because of that lingering Nazi Germany shadow over this film, and I think that's what heightens the stakes of this film because otherwise it would just be like you were saying, an Altman type movie where everyone's just kind of hanging out on a ship, which is also a merit. There's a merit to that. I at first was like, there should be something more. It's like, you know, like Gosford Park has the murder mystery, and then you have like movies like Triangle of Sadness where like they get shipwrecked and they're on an island. Like I was like,
Right.
I want to see something a little bit more than just like these different vignettes, but at the same time, I'm like, but that's life. Life is just a bunch of different vignettes, especially on like a ship like this where everyone is coming from different backgrounds. Everyone's only going to be with each other for this week and then they're going to go their separate ways. There's something kind of beautiful about that, of just like kind of getting to like peek into each little conversation, see what kind of odd relationships and conversations form, and then just also see the fact that like everyone is dealing with their own stuff and no one is above anyone else just because of their class or their money or their race or anything like that, which is evident by also the little person, Michael Dunn's character, kind of being the one who delivers the last line at the end where he's like, what does that have to do with any of us? Nothing, because like at the end of the day, everyone has their own stories, everyone has their own, you know, which
Yeah.
I'm still kind of dissecting that last line also because it's like, well, what do you mean nothing? Because like this is such a huge thing, is the Holocaust, obviously. But I'm also like, but at the same time, like on the ship, all that matters is what's happening here and now, and then it's
Yeah.
gone in a flash, you know, in a poof. So I really liked it. I actually think it was one of those movies that as I was watching it, it was growing more and more on me because I was kind of like able to just sink into what it was. I agree with you. I think Oscar Werner and Simone Signoret, again, so many hard names to pronounce this slate, but I felt like their love story was the most engaging to where I kept wanting to come back to them. But the movie does keep coming back to them, and that's what's nice is it feels like it kind of doesn't shortchange anyone's story. Like Vivian
Oh,
Lee is also great. This is Vivian Lee's last movie, so that's also iconic and
is
important.
she the one that dances, the older
Yeah,
woman
she's
that
Mary
dances?
Treadwell. Yeah, um she's great too. I mean, we gave her the award for Streetcar when we covered it. We didn't give it to her for Gone with the Wind, but we made it up for it with Streetcar. But yeah, like this just has so many great actors. I love great actors just performing great dialogue, and I think that's what this movie is. You know, I don't
Yeah.
think it has to be anything more profound, but because there is that kind of link to Nazi Germany, I think there's like at least a little bit more stakes. I mean, some of these characters just are quite literally going to get arrested. Some are gonna die. Some are gonna, die but don't know it. You know, like I think that's kind of sad and melancholic as well.
Mhm.
To where if you don't have the context, it's not as powerful, but everyone has the context. It's a Holocaust. So I feel like it's one of those like
Yeah.
free passes where you don't need to necessarily do your research to kind of get the gravity of what's about to happen. You know, and I think it's bittersweet in that way. It's honestly more bitter than sweet. But I think that's what makes it really good. And again, why it's so different than most of the films we've been covering the last few months, because this is the 60s. It's kind of going toward that kind of teetering of like something a little edgier, a little darker, a little bit more experimental in its style and its form as well. So yeah, I really like this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think because like we're going from Dr. Zhivago to talking about this, where it's like Dr. Zhivago, we actually had an issue. It's like a sprawling epic, but we actually had issues about, the structure and how
Hmm.
like people were given maybe unequal time, and we're just like, could you have maybe used this time a little bit better, and maybe a pacing kind of issue. But like Ship of Fools, it feels like it was kind of like in a way expertly crafted in that, if we get like all these different types of stories, and it doesn't feel like I think you said, like, no one really gets shortchanged, and like it just feels like everyone's time is being juggled really
Hmm.
well. I don't feel like there's any story in this that didn't get like a fully like kind of beginning, middle, end of like their own story. And it's
Hmm.
so many different stories, and you have to like, figure out how they, come together. Like, another like kind of powerful thing is the Jewish man talking to the like super racist guy,
Yeah.
and how he's like, forget like the exactly how the exchange goes, but it's like, something about the bike riders. It's like you need to get rid of the bike riders or something like that,
Mhm.
or they're destroying the society, kind of a deal. And it's like the racist guy's like, bike riders, why them? Why the Jews? Kind of a deal, like saying like, why would you hyper focus on like one person? And then like the idea that people talk about, like, I'm a German first, or like, the Germany is like, mostly Jewish people. Like, how would you even go about like, removing, a big part of a society, and stuff. And it just, I just feel like everything like really came together kind of perfectly for this. And it just,
Yeah.
it could feel like a jumbled mess, but it feels like it just goes together really well. And I just really enjoyed watching this one. It's also a longer one too. It's like
Mhm.
2.5 hours long. And
Yeah.
I just don't, I mean, I would be lying if I'd say it didn't feel long. I mean, it feels long because you're experiencing so many different stories,
Yeah.
but I'm also invested in like so many different stories, like, and different types of stories too. I just love like old person, like you said, Kevin, having the last hurrah. She gets to dance and stuff. And then go into like the really young people, like and their relationship with the older people, like the young girl who's like, just really insecure, and
Yeah.
then the Jewish man is like, oh, you're such a, um, such a pretty young girl, like not in a creepy way, but like, you're such a pretty young girl. You have your whole life ahead of you. You're just gonna like, by 20 you're gonna be like even more confident and stuff. By 24, you're gonna be a knockout, and like you're just gonna like take this world by storm, kind of how like I guess Darling does in her movie.
Yeah.
Um, and then the one guy who is just trying to have his first sexual experience on the boat,
Yeah.
and stuff, and how we talked about like the slate has a lot of movies that are about like pushing the boundaries a little bit more, talking about sex
Oh
and
yeah.
movies and stuff,
Yeah.
and like like prostitution and whatnot on the ship, or
Mhm.
sex work, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because like I keep saying like, well, I'm on a ship, so this is what it's like every day. There's not that many crazy like wild like counterculture.
A
It's I mean
Disney cruise
I'm
line.
on a family ship, so it's a little
Right.
different. But no, I think just having also been on a ship for so long, like I do have like a soft spot for this film just because it is kind of like, oh, like there's a movie just about like people on a ship.
Right.
But it could be as little as that, where I'm just like, oh, like this is nice because like this is what it's like, to just kind of sit around and talk and have these experiences. So again, it's not the biggest flashiest movie, but I do agree with you. I think in what it's trying to achieve, it achieves more successfully than something that is like obviously a better made movie, probably better directed. But at the end of the day, like, am I gonna want to watch this more? Maybe, just because I do just enjoy the vibe of it. Again, like I like hangout movies like this, especially because there are so many different stories. It doesn't feel its length. It feels its length, but not in the way where I'm like, oh, like we're still here because it's so
Right.
broken up. It's like an anthology in a way.
Yeah.
It's just you kind of keep coming back to the different stories. The anthology just doesn't start and end every single scene. It kind of continues, picks up from where it left off. But because there's not a lot of interchanging, interactions, which is also very interesting because it's also true with cruises. You don't talk to everyone.
Right.
And this isn't necessarily a cruise as much as it is like transport, but you know what I mean. But yeah, I really like it. I don't have anything really much else to add. I was worried we weren't gonna have anything to talk about with this one just because it's very straightforward. It's definitely the most straightforward premise. It's like, no, a
Yeah.
bunch of people on a ship talking, but there are those little nuances that are richer than a lot of the nuances in the other films.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely really like this one, and I wasn't sure like how you were gonna feel about it, because I knew that like because it's a personal kind of film to you because of your job, but
Mhm.
um I just wasn't sure if you were gonna like it as much as I did. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that we kind of like are both on the same page with that. Like it's a very it's not a film that everyone talks about, but it's kind of like a little gem that we're just
Yeah.
like, whoa, okay. I
It
actually
is.
kind of like this one and
Yeah.
how it's set up. And oh, and the other thing too is I feel like another point to this film is that most of the characters are likable, and if they're not, like the
Hmm.
big racist guy, he at least is interesting,
Yeah.
and how when he's confronted by like a Jewish person, he doesn't like scream at him or anything like that. He like actually thinks about what he says.
Yeah.
When you have like vile thoughts, and then like the person that you have vile thoughts about says something to you,
Yeah.
and then you go, huh, maybe I'm an asshole, kind of a deal.
Yeah. Very interesting. Ship of Fools. Yeah, a lot of fools nominated for this slate as well in this film, but they didn't get the win. The two things that it won 2 of 8 Oscars. It won Best Art Direction, Black and White, and Best Cinematography, Black and White. But it was nominated, as I said, for the three fools of Oscar Werner for actor, Simone Signore for actress, and then supporting actor Michael Dunn also for Best Picture. Also, Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Costume Design, Black and White. But I have a fondness for that film because of, obviously living on a ship. But what I also get to make every day, Chad, is beautiful music. So why don't we talk about my other love, which is musical theater, and talk about The Sound of Music. Rodgers and Hammerstein's The Sound of Music. Chad, take it away.
And I don't know how this man like is able to do like a YouTube thing where he just, speaks a lot, because I've heard what you do with your voice on that chip. Oh my God.
You'd be
Uh,
surprised how much this part actually is both comforting and relaxing and helps my voice warm up. But also, I'm like, oh, I could be resting right now. But I'm like, I
right.
love this. I love talking movies with you, Chad. I can't give it
Well,
up.
at least we only do it once a month, right?
Right.
The Sound of Music, directed by Robert Wise, written by Ernest Lehman, cinematography by Ted McCord, music by Richard Rodgers, Oscar Hammerstein II, and Irwin Kostal. Starring Julie Andrews, Christopher Plummer, Eleanor Parker, Richard Hayden, Peggy Wood, Charmaine Carr, Nicholas Hammond, Heather Menzies, Dwayne Chase, Angela Cartwright, related to Veronica Cartwright,
Mm.
Debbie Turner, and Kim Kareth. Synopsis: a postulant in Austria gives new life to a stunted, grieving family by revitalizing their love of music and freedom of choice in a setting of ever increasing fascism.
Yes, so we went from Nazi Germany and now we're back in Nazi Germany, and which is very interesting because it's the
Austria.
'60s. Yeah, which is well, yeah, not Nazi Austria, but you know what I mean, like in the
Right.
midst of the Nazi Germany time.
Right.
But it's interesting because like this movie's in the '60s, so this is at least 20-25 years removed.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking now, I'm like that would be the equivalent of making like a 9/11 movie now, which like doesn't feel that crazy. I feel like
Yeah.
people would still make movies like that now. I think it's less like on everyone's minds at the top of people's minds, but or like people making a movie about like the Bush administration or something like that. Or a good example, like the Bill Clinton Monica Lewinsky scandal, they made the series about it 25 years after it, a few years ago with Beanie Feldstein. So I feel like that's kind of like what we're at now. We're like, it makes sense. Like obviously it was such a huge world war. There were so many stories to come out of it. They're still making stories, whatever. Also, it took time to make the musical, write the musical, and this is an adaptation of the musical, which is important. It's interesting because we talked about King and I, which is also Rodgers and Hammerstein, and we kind of both were like a little bit like underwhelmed by it.
Mm.
And I remember saying in that I was like, oh, is there ever going to be like a Rodgers and Hammerstein movie that like we can talk about and really like, because I know they have so many movies, but I know the musicals go over probably a little bit better than some of the movies do. But then I was like, oh yeah, Sound of Music is Rodgers and Hammerstein, because they really are two of the greatest composers. Their songs are iconic, even though I wouldn't like listen to the soundtrack as much as some of their other works or some of the other works of like other artists. Like I'm not gonna sit down and just listen to Yodelay Hee Hoo. In the hill of the lonely goat herd. It's a great song. It's an earworm, but like I'm not gonna like choose to listen to it in my spare time. But also for this movie, for these characters, like the soundtrack is just perfect. It really is kind of the perfect Rodgers and Hammerstein soundtrack. Also with the variety, you have Climb Every Mountain, which is this big, powerful, belting epic. You have I Have Confidence, which is this great I Want song. You have The Hills Are Alive, which is like that big, like obviously like title number, The Sound of Music. Very iconic. Edelweiss, which is a just tender, sweet little lullaby.
Mm.
And then you have all the cute little songs with all the kids. Like it really just has a little bit of variation of everything and a little bit for everyone. I'm very fond of this. I actually saw it on stage first before I saw it as a film. My sister played Gretel when she was like 4 or 5 years old, which is so
Aw.
sweet. So she did the whole like the sun has gone to bed and so must I. I was like, it's the cutest thing, and I really and I saw that show like probably like 20-25 times just because there was nothing else to do. But like, okay, Nina's in another matinee, let's go see the show. But yeah, it was such a beautiful show, and I think they really translated it well to film. This is one where it like makes a lot of sense why you would want to put this on film, just because it's gorgeous. I mean, the Alps and the mountains and the hills, those grassy areas, like they really utilize the space very well too. And then also the production design of the mansion, of the convent, of all these things. Sorry, I'm raving. I know I'm going to give you a chance to
That's
talk,
okay.
but yeah, I really like this film, and I think it's no surprise. This is a musical that has definitely earned its right as like one of the greatest of all time, even though I know a lot of musicals haven't, and especially of this era have aged poorly. Look at Gigi, also won Best Picture. So winning Best Picture as a musical does not mean anything. American in Paris, but this one I think is the one that actually like works. Because it's also a great story. It's not just about the music. I mean, the music is what the characters are actually making in the movie, but it really is more about this relationship with not just her and this guy, but the kids, with also trying to escape this terrible time. So I think it just has so much packed into a long runtime, but like so little time, so much packed into it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's okay. You let me talk about like every other movie first. So
I know.
but
It's not a music. I'm like, oh, my musicals.
yeah,
I love when my musicals are good.
that's exactly the thing is like we're always wondering, you know, when a musical comes up, is Dylan gonna gush about this one, or is he going to be like, yeah, it could have been better? Just talking about the songs and the dancing and stuff, and
Mhm.
doing your critiques. But yeah, I'm glad that you like this one. Cut that out. Yeah, I'm glad that you like this one because I also really love this one on rewatch because this is one that. Sorry, he's my cat.
It's okay. Um, Also worth noting, Julie Andrews back-to-back nominations. She was coming off Mary Poppins too, so I know a lot of people are like, "How did she not win for this?" It's because they just gave her the award for Mary Poppins.
Mm,
I figured that would come up later. Just wanted to get that out of the way now. I mean, Julie Christie, this was her big year. Julie Andrews kind of had her big year, the coming out party the year before, so this is also a big like kind of secondary star making turn for Julie Andrews too, because she kind of came out the gate swinging with Mary Poppins, and then she kept upping it with this. Like to do Mary Poppins and this back to back is quite impressive. We haven't covered that film yet. We will, but probably next year. But yeah, crazy. Like what a back to back double header that career is. Like that is how you want to start your career for sure. But anyway,
yeah, and I am interested to see how we talk about Mary Poppins when we get there. But for this one, yeah, it is great to see Julie Andrews being nice, being Julie Andrews being like super young in this and just being so great. Yeah, I saw this like a very long time ago. I think I liked it back then, but like I didn't like it as much as I did this most recent time. And it just had been such a long time in between watches that I just didn't really have much of an opinion of it. I
hmm.
was like, maybe I like it, maybe I don't. I can't even remember, to be honest. And sometimes my when my father-in-law and his wife come over to see my son and us and have family time, sometimes I'll be like, hey, this is what we're doing for picture this month, and here's like some of the movies I gotta watch. You guys want to watch a movie? So I'll try to like do some of that time. And they've watched stuff like Giant and The
Hmm.
Letter with us. I'm trying to remember some other ones that they watched, but um, I watched Coda with me, but that was after we did Picture
Hmm.
This. But they did also watch most of The Sound of Music, and they had a lot of experience with having like watched it a lot as
Hmm.
kids and stuff.
Yeah,
Well, not
because
kids.
it plays on
Well,
TV,
yeah,
and this is something I didn't realize. Like every Thanksgiving, Christmas, like it's
yeah,
playing on TV just as much as like like Home Alone, It's a Wonderful Life. Like it really is on TV all the time this time of year. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it a Christmas movie, but I also like if you wanted to watch it at Christmas and it gave you Christmas vibes, I wouldn't argue with you
Yeah.
either because it does have a lot of like stuff about family and just music and joy, and
And there's
faith.
that slight religious faith aspect as well, which is
That's
kind of like,
true.
it's a Christian
Yeah.
movie. It's kind of like watching the Ten Commandments on Easter. It's like, well, shouldn't you be watching a movie about Jesus? But I'm like, yeah, it's a religious film. It works. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not like a religious film that like a religious film. It's not like
No.
the Ten Commandments or anything where it's like, this has an agenda or anything like that. It's like a religious film in that the plot is, about that, somewhat. It's not like she goes there and she forces all the kids to do Bible study.
No.
or anything like that.
If anything, it's her breaking free of her bubble a little bit and
Yeah,
being more liberal in her thinking. Because that's the thing, is like she keeps the faith and she keeps the grace and the humanity that she's always known and loved, but she's able to funnel it towards something that means a lot more to her, which is caring for these kids and really like building this relationship with him. And I love how there's no judgment passed either. Like
yeah,
earlier on, there is like, how do you solve a problem with Maria? The thing is, you let her go and you let her fly on her own. And
yeah,
then now, like the wedding song, when they're walking up to the altar, is how do you solve a problem with like Maria? But like, it's a positive now. It's like,
yeah,
how do you solve a problem like Maria? Because she's the one who solves problems, type deal. It's
yeah. I
not
love
she is
that.
the problem; she is solving the problem now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love that they kind of like, let instead of like forcing her to, you know, do go into the nun life, they go find out if this is right for you and what do you want for your life, because you're not really devoting a lot of time to doing this. Is this what you really want to do? Go find yourself. If this is what you want to do, come back. I love that, like that kind of mentality. Then religion has to be this, you know angry structured thing, and you have to do this or God will hate you, or anything like that. It's not nothing like that. It's more like, yeah, like a liberal kind of thing, which is, I feel like religion should get back to, because we're doing religion the wrong way in today's times, I think, because now
Yeah.
we're doing it as like an authoritarian, like, kind of pointing fingers thing, rather than a Jesus level kind of,
Yeah.
we need to love everyone and stuff like that. And I feel like that's this kind of religion movie. But we're getting like in the weeds about like the religion aspect. It's not like the biggest part of the movie. Biggest part of
No.
the movie that I love is like the love story, not just between Maria and the with the captain, but like the love between her and all the kids, and him and all the kids, and how the death of his wife has kind of like made him be harder, where he's got, I guess, like that military life, he's kind of like harder, and then treating them like soldiers rather than children, and like instead of having that love, it's more structured, and it is more of like that thing that I was talking about with like some religions, that is like, you have to do this way and you have to do that, and you can't enjoy yourself, you can't sing and
Hmm.
be happy, you have to do it this way, and you can't be scared of thunder because that's weak. You can't do that. And instead, you have this presence that comes, that is like, no, you can sing about your favorite things, you can make yourself feel better when it's like thunder. These are kids
Hmm.
that are missing their mom, and then also have a dad that just doesn't really know how to do all this by himself. And
Yeah.
even though he's got help, because he's kind of, he's kind of wealthy, it looks like, there's no mother presence there. I'm not saying you have to have a mother presence,
Right.
but there's no like support either way that
There's
he
no
has
presence at all. Yeah. Exactly.
about a parentage,
Hmm.
so, and so she comes in and offers this different perspective that not only changes the kids' lives and how they are able to live in more of a free spirited kind of way, but it changes him too. And I love all of that. I just think like him, the captain, like re-experiencing music, and kind of finding this like forgotten part of himself that was going to go like down a very different path. And then also the other story of the ever, increasing like fascism and takeover of Austria, and how, people who are like, I'm Austrian, they're like, no, you're German, or, whatever the
Right.
dynamic is, where they're like, you have to be under the rule of this,
Right.
kind of like with, I guess you could think like Britain over Ireland, where you got like part of them, they're like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
And then some of them are like, fuck that, I'm
Right. Yeah.
Irish. Okay.
Yeah.
Like you see
Hmm.
that Cillian Murphy interview where they call him British, and he's like, no, I'm Irish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get that shit right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
here you have the kind of the same thing, and then what they do with music, and the how important music is to like the Austrian people. They have like their like song and dance, that like, here's the traditional Austrian song and dance, do you have to know, and how their love uh is established kind of like from that, like where they develop this love through music and experience with the children, and teaching children the ways, and how also the captain could easily have been portrayed. I mean, it's this is also a real story from real people.
Right.
The captain could have been portrayed as someone who is more authoritarian, but you see that he doesn't fucking like any of that shit. He's not down with any of that. He's actually a good person,
Yeah.
and I love that about all the characters, all the Von Trapps and Maria,
Hmm.
and how they're just all good people, and you want to see
Yeah.
them survive and get out of there.
Yeah, I like how the turn of the captain is not him turning from like a more fascist point of view to
Right.
Maria softening him on political views, because I think it'd be a lot harder to get on board with him. I
Yeah.
think it's more like, oh no, you're softening him because he's gone through a loss. His wife is gone and he has all these kids and he doesn't know how to parent them. And I think that's honestly something that is not as well addressed in movies too. Is like sometimes being a single parent is just tough, and it's like, I mean, I don't know it, you don't know what it's like, but I'm
No.
just like, it's very very difficult, and I feel like that's something that, you know, a movie like this has great empathy for, where you don't really necessarily judge the captain. You're nervous because you're like, you see he's a little strict, but it's also like you can see, I think this is due to Christopher Plummer's performance as well, just like
Yeah.
how he does have that softness inside him, and I think it's kind of like that Beauty and the Beast thing of like, it was always there. You just have to kind of like pull it out, and really, you know, try to find the right person to bring that out of you. But it didn't go away necessarily. It's just that he's going through a lot. He's going through a loss, and I think they give a lot of humanity to that character. And it's really interesting how quickly the turns happen, though, too. I'm like, he's already singing with the kids, and he's like accepted them like only an hour or so in, and I'm like, whoa, okay, we're already here. And then like another hour later, I'm like, oh, we're already at them kissing. The love story is already resolved. I'm like, oh yeah, there's that whole third act basically about Nazism and
Yeah.
fascism. So it's really cool how like you think the movie's going to culminate in the father accepting the children, but it's not. It ends up being culminating in him falling in love with Maria. Oh, but it's not. It culminates in them escaping. So it's really,
Yeah.
it follows that 3 act structure very, very well. Even
Yeah.
on stage, I believe on stage it ends. Act one ends with the father accepting the kids and singing along, and then Act two
Oh,
starts. Act two starts with like the love story brewing more. I think that's how it is. I can't remember entirely, but it really does have a good 3 act structure for a film's sake, just because it's like, you know, father winning, kids winning over the father again with Maria's help, then him and Maria falling in love in the second act, and then the third act being now that they are a family and they're established. And I really like that about this. I think that's why this movie succeeds so well that some other movie musicals sometimes falter, is like musicals are 2 acts. So like sometimes in a movie, it's like it just, the structure doesn't feel as, balanced, whereas here it works because you can turn this 2 act structure into a 3 act structure, and I think it works very very well, because each act has something interesting, it has a new conflict and resolution, which is really cool to see. You know, you don't get that in a lot of musicals. Overall, sometimes some musicals would build to the relationship as like the final thing. They kiss, that's the end. It's like Cinderella. Or some movies would end with the father accepting his kids, that's the end. But it doesn't. It kind of goes beyond that. It's like, no, this is more, this is the story we're trying to tell. We want to
yeah.
show how this family united through music was able to
Yeah.
overcome this terrible time. This movie's not about the love story. I mean, it is, but it's not, that's not the sole focus. Yet,
Right.
I think the love story is more prominent and more of a through line than like Dr. Zhivago's even is. So I think it's really good about balancing different tone storylines, and just making it feel structured without making it feel like it's just kind of a run-on sentence of trying to like, yes, and every act, every hour, just to pad time and make it an epic. It feels like it justifies the runtime for sure.
Yeah, there is a lot going on in the movie. I do think it is great from like a structure standpoint, like you said. And I just love like, yeah, every aspect of it. Even like the side thing with Liesel and her boyfriend, who we learn is a Nazi and
Mhm.
or becomes a Nazi.
Yeah, that's
And
heartbreaking. Yeah.
it's heartbreaking, but like you kind of see like as like you know, you see like the youth being kind of, indoctrinated and taken over by that cult, I guess you could call it,
Hmm.
and how he thinks it's completely the thing that you do as a young, like Austrian or German or whatever youth, and that you're just easily persuaded by something like that. There's an enemy out there, and you need to
Hmm.
stop it or whatever. And that's that to them. That's the exact thing. But it's like that love, but I love how at the end, it's him that finds them when they're like about to escape, and it's him that finds them, and then he's about to call reinforcements, Nazi reinforcements, and the captain stops him and says, "You'll never be one of them." And
Mm-hmm.
it's like the little bit of thing that he can do to kind of reach him, and yet the boy is still calls, but you wonder, like after the movie's over, you wonder because like it ends with them just walk, kind of still fleeing. Like you don't see them established somewhere else and what happens with him, but so you just
Mm-hmm.
wonder maybe that little nugget of you'll never be one of them, maybe he does something good down the road or something
Mm-hmm.
like that young kid, because
Yeah.
he is a young kid, he doesn't know. I when I was that kid's age, I thought a lot of stupid stuff that
Yeah.
I think is, really bad now, that I'm just like, what
Right.
was I thinking?
Well, and the song "I'm 16 going on 17," like you look back at that now, 17 going on 18, I'll take care of you. It's like, oh yeah, what 18-year-old has ever taken care of anyone?
Right.
Like it
Yeah.
really is true though, and it's to emphasize that the fact that they're young. Even
Yeah.
Maria's young, and the fact that
Yeah.
she's going through
Oh
her
yeah.
own thing. I mean, they make a good point of that when she is a little klutzy. She kind of barges in. She's loud. She's a little obnoxious, but in a very endearing way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think this really plays on youth and age and understanding when you have to grow up too fast and when you need to acknowledge your youth and enjoy your youth as well. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, there's so many different themes to talk about with this one, because like even when you were talking about like single parent, like I don't know what it's like to be a single
Mhm.
parent, but I can tell you what, I know what it's like to be not a single parent and just a parent with another parent to
Yeah,
help.
it's tough.
And I can tell you
Let alone eight
how it would
kids.
be if it was just me. There have been times where I've had to take care of my son, for, at least a few days by myself. And even just that is just extremely tough. And then, having like the help there, but it's not even just that, like not just having like a physical body there to help change a diaper, help, do this or that. I mean, all these kids are kind of more grown now, like grown in a way that they don't wear diapers anymore, probably. I don't think Gretel's in diapers in that movie, but um, having like a different personality or perspective over here to combat almost, or like
Yeah.
persuade different things. Because if you're dead set on one thing, it might be the wrong thing or the wrong path that you're having a kid go down, and then you need the other perspective to go, have you ever thought about doing it this way, kind of a deal. So you really
Yeah.
do need like at least like two people there to kind of help support, good child growth and stuff. So yeah, it's there's a lot to talk about there, and also just like the the level of talent in this movie, I just thought
Yeah.
was just like awe inspiring. Where I'm just like looking at it, like I think about stuff like Singing in the Rain, and how talented those actors were, like doing with the Moses poses and the make them laugh kind of stuff, and you're
Yeah.
just like, holy shit, what did I just watch? That was like
Right.
incredible. And then you look at this and you're just like, with all them doing the doe, a deer, and they're just like doing all of the different like vocal gymnastics that they do in this, and it's
Hmm.
all timed like expertly. And I'm just like, I've never seen this on stage. I don't know how they do it on stage, but in this movie, it's just incredible, like the
Yeah.
level of doing it. I'm just like, I don't know how anybody learns to
Yeah.
do all the stuff that they do as
Right.
they, individually, but also like together as an ensemble. Just going out singing all this stuff, and I'm just like, it's just expert level, led
Yeah.
by Julie Andrews, who's just
Yeah.
one of a kind talent.
Yeah, she this is the role she's I mean, I want to say the role she was born to play, but Mary Poppins is also the role she was born to play. But it is one of those things where she just plays nurturing so well
Yeah,
in different ways too. Because I feel like Mary Poppins is much more strict and playful, whereas where Maria is a little bit more innocent, a little bit more naive, but also just so endearing as well. Like she just has such a heart of gold, and
yeah,
it's she actually doesn't have a lot of change in this film. She doesn't really change her ways. I feel like she just finds her path
Exactly.
if
That's her
anything,
arc.
more
Yeah.
so than changing who she is, which I like. I like how she stays herself the entire way through. The captain's the one who changes, the kids change. And I really like that about this movie. I think also on terms of expert level, visually it's also gorgeous, and I think that's something they
Yeah.
really touched on with Dr. Zhivago, because the substance wasn't really there. But here the substance is there, but the style is also there, and I feel like the style in this thing, just that opening shot of the hills, and just the way the blue skies look so blue and the greens look so green. I mean, it is movie magic in every sense of the word. I mean, this feels like what big golden age musicals on screen ought to be, and like this is the grand prototype for that. I feel just the way it's shot, presented,
Yeah.
lit, colored, everything like that.
Yeah, even like with the costume design, how she makes the clothes out of those drapes and how the clothes
Yeah,
look, and just kind of like very, I don't, I guess iconic. But then
yeah,
just like thinking about Julie Andrews and the two roles. It's been a while since I've seen Mary Poppins, but I feel like I want to say, I mean, I guess like Expialidocious and stuff is like very complicated to sing in a way, but I'm thinking like, even though like Mary Poppins is her more iconic role, I feel like this is her like expert level role,
yeah,
like where she just like like nails it.
yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, even the songs are just so difficult in this one. Like Mary Poppins, it's more like little ditties here and there.
yeah,
But I think it's a slightly harder acting challenge, just because it's like she's playing this more whimsical character. But here, I just think she's honestly playing what I believe to just be herself, and
yeah,
not in a demeaning way. I mean, Kieran Culkin won an Oscar for it last year. Like there's a merit in playing yourself, and I think that's beautiful when you can take yourself and kind of put it in your
yeah,
art. And I think that's what Julie Andrews like. I imagine she is this beautiful sunshine person that she displays in this film. She's putting a lot of herself into this role while also singing some of the hardest songs to sing. The only person I've heard sing these songs just as good, or if not better than her, Lady Gaga, when she sang Sound of Music on the Oscars. That was it. Like
whoa,
really, very few people I know can sing that song as beautifully as she does. So
yeah,
Julie Andrews, yeah.
yeah, and it's just really next level. And yeah, we can keep talking about this movie because this movie is just really
Yeah,
incredible, and I love that this show helped me realize how much I
yeah,
really love this movie, because
yeah,
I just wasn't sure. It was one of those movies where you're like, yeah, Sound of Music, I know it's like a staple, but is it good? And then I
mhm,
watch it and I go, oh, this is
yeah.
freaking incredible. Like
Any
all the
movie
and
I was gonna say any movie where a gay man, and I'm talking about Christopher Plummer, not the captain, obviously, but where a gay man gets to rip a Nazi flag in half is like a win. I'm like, there
I
you go.
didn't actually know
That
that about Christopher Plummer. Interesting.
yeah, yeah. I'm like that is the coolest thing, is that he like you have this guy like just whenever he tears that flag, I'm like, yes, let's go,
Yeah,
let's go. Yeah,
and especially like in a age or like a time right now where not ever in my life have I ever thought more about like like a rebel like revolution like level of like we need to put a stop to things in a way, like like peacefully or whatever, but like
hmm
thinking about using art as a way to push back against stuff. Thinking about like one battle after another and stuff. I'm sure we'll cover down the road on Picture This, but like thinking about like older movies like The Sound of Music that still really inspire like a level of you know even the smallest. I denounce that. I'm not a fan of that kind of a deal. Can go a long way, and uh, standing up against the wrong side of history, I
yeah,
guess. So,
yeah. No, this film is definitely on the right side of
beautiful
history.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful, and doesn't even win a lot of the text, only because Dr. Zhivago, it makes sense why that wins some like costumes and art direction and cinematography. It is just a shame that two huge, beautiful epics come out in the same year, but it also, made for a very fun Oscar race. So, Sound of Music wins 5 of the 10 it's nominated for. It wins Best Picture, Best Director for Robert Wise, his second win, but only his first one by himself. The last one he shared with Jerome Robbins for West Side Story. Also wins Adapted Musical Score, Best Sound, and Best Editing. It is nominated for Best Actress for Julie Andrews, Best Supporting Actress for Peggy Wood, Best Art Direction Color, Cinematography Color, and Costume Design Color. So we could say 1,000 words about The Sound of Music. But you remember that Ship of Fools? Let's revisit those fools. Why don't we? Why don't we talk about 1,000 clowns, if you will, another synonym for fools? Crazy that 1,000 clowns and Ship of Fools are both in the same slate. I think
Right.
it's very funny. But Chad, tell us about 1,000 clowns.
Real quick though, was Peggy Wood Liesel?
No, Peggy Wood was Mother Abbess, the one who sang "Climb Every Mountain."
Okay, gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha.
gotcha.
Because I was like the actress who played Liesel, fantastic.
Yes.
Um, A Thousand Clowns, directed by Fred Coe, written by
Yeah.
Herb Gardner Coe, um, cinematography by is this Arthur J. Ornitz, music
Yes.
by Jerry Mulligan and Don Walker, starring Jason Robards, Barbara Harris, Martin Balsam, Barry Gordon, Fine, William Daniels, Gene Sachs, Phil Bruns, and John McMartin. Synopsis: a free spirited man raises his nephew in the best way he knows how, but their relationship and his way of living are tested when Child Services becomes aware of the situation.
Yeah. Um, I this movie is very interesting because like I think this is the prime example of like we're transitioning from the 50s to the 70s. Like this is the 60s. We're gonna be crazy. We're gonna be wild because like this movie. I watched it on YouTube because I found a free version that was uploaded, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this, and it kept cutting, and I was like, oh, am I watching a version? Because sometimes on YouTube, if someone wants to upload something to YouTube for copyright purposes, they'll like cut like every so often just to make sure it's not like copyright, struck
Right.
in, so it gets a little different, or they'll like slow things down or speed things up. Here though, I was like, oh my gosh, all these cuts. So then I rented it, and it's the same thing. I was like, oh my gosh,
Where did you
it's one of
rent
those.
it?
I don't remember one of the sites. I will tell you afterwards.
Okay,
But yeah, like I was able to find it. I rented it somewhere, and I was just like, what is what I also spend half of my weeks in the Bahamas, so maybe I have more access than you on certain things.
maybe.
But I was just like, I was like, whoa, what? It's just one of those jarring movies that's like shot like an action movie, but it's not. It's just this kind of hangout. It almost feels like uh like a like a Lost in Yonkers type play where it's just like a bunch of
It
guys
is
like
fun, yeah.
just it was based on a play. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, it feels like a play. We're just a bunch of guys. I know you just said it. I didn't even realize. But yeah, like just kind of a bunch of guys. This guy and his nephew. Meeting all these different people and like he's imparting his wisdom and the kid has his own wisdom and it's got to make a bigger commentary. But people come in and out of these lives. I don't really know what to make of it. It's one of those things where I'm like. I don't even know if I liked it. I don't know if I hated it. I don't know. It was just one of those films that just like not what I expected it to be. And as it was going, I still didn't know how to wrap my head around it. But I think I liked it. Chad, tell us about 1,000 Clowns because I want to ruminate on what I just said now.
interesting. Yeah, I like this movie, I think, a lot more.
Oh,
I kinda love this movie.
okay, cool.
I think it's because I think it's a good comedy too. Like, it's
Yes,
really
very
funny.
funny.
And also it reminds me, and this might track for you if you think about it, if you haven't thought about it already, reminds me of Big Daddy.
You know what? You're so right.
Yeah.
Yes, you're
I
so
I
right.
I went to the Wikipedia page of Big Daddy and I was like, "Is it gonna say based on A Thousand Clowns?" Because and like that realization, also my mouth dropped, like my jaw dropped when I realized that the one child services guy is Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World.
Yes.
And I was like, "That's that guy? Oh my
Yeah.
god." And
Uh-huh.
realizing he's also still alive at like 98.
Yeah,
I'm like,
he was on
"You
Dancing with the Stars a few weeks ago as a guest.
what?"
He because Danielle Fishel Topanga was on Dancing with the Stars, and they had to do a dedications night. And Danielle danced a Boy Meets World routine, and he was in the back of it. He got to act in it, which was really cool.
My god,
I'll send you the link. I'll
wow.
send you the link. It's great. It's great.
That's so cool. Cause yeah, like it's cool seeing him like super young in this movie. And so yeah, I love the dynamic between the uncle and the nephew. It kind of seems like a father and son kind of thing for a while because essentially that's what their relationship is, even though it's a little bit more complicated than that. Like, the kids, Nick, his mother sort of like abandoned him. Like he's been living with this guy for his uncle for 7 years. So it's essentially like a guardianship kind of thing, it looks like, but maybe like unofficially. And another reason why it's kind of like Big Daddy is that his name's not really Nick. It's like, he's trying to find out what his name is, and his uncle's like, you figure out what your name is. And in Big Daddy, he's like, your name can be whatever you want it to be. It could be Julian, or it could be Frankenstein, if you want it to be. And so yeah, I love how this movie is seeing like a kid being raised in a situation where, I mean, the guy had a steady job writing for a comedy show, but not maybe not always the most stable job. And then of course he, I guess, gets laid off, and he's like looking for work and stuff, but he has this like free spirited kind of way of living, kind of like how Sonny does in Big Daddy. And it's just kind of like, is that the best place to raise a kid? It looks like this, kid is or I mean, he's
He's 12.
really coming of age. Yeah, he's like 12, but he's, he feels a lot older than 12.
Yeah. Well,
Because
I think some of the best comedy is the fact that he talks like a 60-year-old man. Like I like, oh hey, no 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 no. I'm like, whoa. Like I think that's funny too, because it plays with that idea of like he grew up too fast. This guy is maybe a little acts a little too young.
yeah.
He has to grow up a little bit more. Like it's almost like the adult has to grow up, the kid has to learn how to be a kid type
Yeah.
play. You know, I
Yeah.
I, I like this one, Chad. I just it just took me by surprise. I just didn't know what to
Yeah.
make of it. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I'm not I'm not saying you dislike it. I just when I this movie just really surprised me because I was
Mhm.
just like so invested and on board with like their relationship. It was like one of those where for like the first like excuse me, for the first like half of the movie, I was like so against the child services people. And then like towards the second half, and even kind of what happens in Big Daddy is that like you think about it and you're like, is this guy, even though they have like a really good relationship, is this guy the best influence in this kid's life realistically, if you actually think about it? And
Yeah.
then they have like a line in the movie where William Daniels is like, look, I know you see me as a villain right now, and like you hate me and you don't want to hear anything that I have to say. And you kind of do, as like an audience member, at least I did, you kind of do dislike that guy Albert, or I think his name's Albert, in the movie,
Yeah.
because he has a very different opinion of how to navigate being a child services person than the woman that he's with, and the woman that kind of has a love interest with Murray, the dad in the movie, or the uncle in the movie. Um, because the one child services guy is like, you have to be stern, you can't like get too sympathetic with people because it's not a good way to do. You can't see things clearly about how it is, and that's kind of how I was more like her in the beginning, where I was like, no, they love each other, they support each other, they sing together, they have a lot of fun together and
Hmm.
stuff. But he's not a stable like parent. He doesn't know, like,
Yeah.
he's more of a free-spirited thinker, which is not the worst thing in the world, but it's also like he
Not what you want for a
sometimes
parent. Yeah.
not what you want for a parent. You sometimes need structure. You sometimes need to, and it kind of also reminded me of that movie that we watched for this, The Crowd, because
Yeah.
he kind of has to disappear into the crowd and become one of those other like worker bees that just goes and gets a job because you have to. And you have to be kind of like a sort of presence. If he wants to be in that kid's life, he can, but maybe not in the exact way that he wants to be or that he has been, and maybe just like afraid of change. I like
Hmm.
the character and how he is just really funny, just in general. What I wrote down the line, you might call Nick a bastard or a little bastard, depending on how whimsical you feel. It's just like certain lines like that,
Yeah.
and stuff that made. And the kid is really funny too.
Oh
And
yeah.
just seeing like their whole like relationship, and seeing how the guy like Murray, he goes out in the middle of the street and just does like random kind of like feels kind of like a prank bro kind of thing, where he'll
Hmm.
just yell stuff to see if he can get a reaction out of people, and it just feels like very unique, like he wants to be like a unique individual instead of a part of the crowd and stuff. And so you get like a lot of different character perspectives and character arcs and dynamics and stuff that I think is really good. And even the woman she's very infatuated by the way this guy lives, not structured and stuff. And she wants to, and then she sees that like he goes to do interviews and then he comes back and like lies about it. And he's like, I went, he has this whole thing where he's like, I went around just saying, I'm sorry to people. And most people, would say, oh, that's okay, even if I didn't do anything to them or whatever. And then it all leads up to him saying sorry to her that he didn't actually
Mhm.
go take these interviews seriously. And then she leaves him. She's like, well, we're done. If you're not going to take this seriously kind of deal, maybe you aren't the person that
Yeah.
I should be with. And then this guy that we kind of hated, or not hated, but disliked early in the movie comes back and says, look, you might hate me. I have to be the bad guy right now, but what I'm saying has some merit, and that maybe you're not the best influence on this kid, or you can be like a partial influence on him. Like you can still
Mhm.
be in his life, kind of like in Big Daddy, where he's still a part of Julian's life, but like more so just like a fun uncle and not the main parent that influences the kid. But I also love how Murray has the speech that he gives where he's talking about young Nick, and he's like, you know, I want Nick. This is what I want for Nick, and his whole speech about wanting Nick to experience life in a certain way and not get kind of conditioned to be, I guess, a part of the crowd or whatever the speech is. And it was something that really touched me as a father, like thinking about my son. Like I want the world for my son. I want to give him
Yeah.
everything I want him to have any experience he wants to, and I don't want anyone to tell him no. But I also want structure for him, and so
Mhm.
you want the free spirited, like make your own choices, go out, be crazy, do fun stuff, be interesting, be weird if you want to go yell out on the streets, but also don't get the police coming after you
Right.
by yelling out on the streets or just being really crazy. So you need structure too. So I love how the movie's trying to find that balance for the characters,
Yeah.
and I just love these like performances from the characters
Yeah.
too. I really like this one.
Yeah, no, I can tell. I mean, I was letting you go because it was great. I mean, I love what you had to say. It actually is painted a little bit differently for me because at first I was just like, because the movie's called A Thousand Clowns. And I think the whole point is that it's like you're trying to see everything from Murray's perspective. And in that sense, like everyone around him is a clown. Like it almost kind of dismisses literally everything they're saying. It tries to make a
Yeah,
fool out of everyone who comes to Murray. But and I thought at first it was the film it's again that problem of advocating for something versus examining something where I was worried that the film was advocating for that, basically trying to be like, no, you stand your ground, you don't let other people tell you how to parent your kid. But at the same
right.
time, the way you were saying, like, you need that structure. You can acknowledge he's not the best fit to be this parent for this guy, for this kid. I call him a guy because he sounds like a 6-year-old man. But yeah, like, and it's kind of one of those things where you have to try to guess, like, is the film itself trying to show that Murray is flawed and he's in the wrong, but he's delusional about it, but you're still seeing it from his point of view? Or are you meant to actually agree with his point of view and see everyone else around him as the villains of his story? And I think that's where it's very interesting with William Daniels' character because it's like he even says, "I know I'm going to be the villain of this. Like I know I'm going to be the bad guy." But like, does the movie also want you to believe he's the bad guy, or does the movie want you to sympathize with him? The problem is because it's all Murray's point of view, and like it's so focused on that, and we do genuinely like seeing him and the kid together. They're fun together. You know, I worry that sometimes I'm worried that the wrong person may take the wrong lessons from this. But the same could be said about Big Daddy. I think Big Daddy though is so farcical in times that it does try to make sure that you know exactly where the priorities of its lesson are. Whereas here, at times I was like, are they wanting me to like kind of blame these other people for just trying to speak some logic? It feels like it's almost trying to villainize everyone else. But at the same time, if we're looking at this movie through his eyes, that's what Murray is thinking. So like, if I'm looking at it in that lens, that is the device just to make you feel like you're stepping into the shoes of that character because despite Murray being in the wrong, he thinks he's in the right. And so, for that sense, you, the audience, are going to see it through his point of view, which I think is interesting. I like how this kind of plays with that point of view. At first, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I wasn't sure like, what the lesson it was trying to teach me was. But I think the more I've heard you talk about it, Chad, the more I've realized, like, no, it is trying to condemn some of the things Murray's doing as this guardian. but
Yeah.
also because it is his point of view, and trying to understand the opposite end as well, and try to have at least some empathy for both sides of the divide. For me, it was just mostly the structure kind of caught me off balance because it does have
Yeah.
those like quick cuts,
Or
and
strange.
it'll just like be playing music and it'll cut to something that's like quiet and just another scene and stuff. But I think also that's just kind of fun that comes with the 60s. It reminds me of the John Schlesinger thing where it's like, you're just trying to experiment with something new of the art form. It's the counterculture. It's just trying to be a little edgier, be a little different just because you have the technology. The code is gone. You can kind of play a little freely with the structure of it. But at the same time, I don't necessarily know if it helps the film. I don't think, I mean, maybe it gives a little bit of disorientation and to show that Murray's a little bit, not 100% there, or at least not 100% fit. Maybe that's what the style's there for. It almost just felt like style for the style's sake of just
Mm.
like, oh, we're just gonna cut this and make this kind of cool and like do a little freeze frame here and this and this and that. When I think it could have just been what it was on its own. I don't think it needed
Yeah.
that. So that was where I was kind of like, do I like the way it's being shot and filmed and structured? Also, I've seen a lot of people say that they think Barry, what's his name, Barry
Gordon.
Gordon's performance is annoying. I don't. I think the kid. Well,
Interesting.
they're just like, he's just so annoying. I get why they think that, but I think that's kind of the charm of the character is that he is just this kid who talks and he just keeps talking. He makes these little like comments, whippersnapper, and it's. I really really like Barry Gordon's performance in this. I think it really works for this movie as well to get again show that maturity that he has, whereas Robart's character is kind of lacking that maturity and kind of seeing how they kind of work for each other but work against each other. So yeah, I like all the performances in this thing. I think it's weird that Martin Balsam is the one who wins the Oscar for this when I think his scene is probably the least impactful. Personally, I just feel like he kind of has the least amount of presence of all the supporting cast.
Got the
Um,
Chuckles guy.
no, Martin is his brother, the agent.
Oh, okay. The
Yeah,
fruit guy.
yeah. So again, like great performance, but I'm shocked that that's the one that won him the Oscar. And he even
Yeah.
said in an interview he thinks it's because he didn't get nominated for Breakfast at Tiffany's that they're kind of writing that wrong.
Uh,
Just like a lot of people think that Rod Steiger winning for In the Heat of the Night is because he didn't win for Dr. Zhivago. So like
that
sometimes they'll
was
just do
that
that.
guy.
Yes, that guy. So
Oh.
sometimes they'll do that. Sometimes they'll, give an Oscar because they missed out the first time or whatever. But then you have the Julie Andrews where it's like, no, she should probably win a second one, but she just won the year before, so we can't force gump it. Even though Tom Hanks won back to back. I don't know how the Academy works sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do like this. I think talking about it more, I'm a little bit more on board with it. I just it's perplexing to me, and I just it was one of those things where when it had ended, I was just kind of like, that was just a very fascinating experience because it's
Mm.
paced and shot and edited unlike any other film in this slate. It's obviously got those very good performances, but it is a play, so it also feels very like kind of single setting, like just kind of characters coming and going through from a room. It doesn't feel like a sprawling tale, even in the way like Darling is, where she goes through this chronicle of like becoming a princess, and Sound of Music, where it's quite literally a 3-act structure, and Dr. Zhivago, literally this big sweeping epic. This is very much more like Ship of Fools, where it's kind of set in this one location, but even
Yeah.
more confined than Ship of Fools because it is just about this one guy. But
Right.
yeah, no, I think it's good. I'm very entertained by it. It's very interesting, and now that we've talked about it, I'm a little more on board with the themes and the way it's characterized and what it's trying to say about parenting. That at first I wasn't necessarily sure about how I felt about the matter.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see like where you're coming from for sure. Because maybe it doesn't feel like it's like fully there in the end. But I kind of got like because he kind of wanted Nick to like he wanted to see like Nick specifically like have like certain like have like certain ways about him, like you wanted him to be able to stand up for himself. Like if you might like lose like a kid in a way that like you can't take care of them anymore, or maybe you see them like way less frequently than you do, like you want to at least be able to see that the kid can like have like conduct themselves in a world that's harsh and stuff and not get taken advantage of. So
Yeah.
he in a way he cared about the kid. It's not like he didn't care about the kid. So it's just like he there's things he had to fix about himself, but in his the way he talks about Nick and wanting the best for him, like you could tell that he has like a fatherly level of love for him.
Yeah,
And
the love is undeniable, and I think
yeah,
that's a part of a very important piece of it. It's not an absentee father by any means. He's just
yeah,
a guy who loves the kid but doesn't really know how to properly provide. Yeah.
in the best way. Yeah, and I love how he changes at the end. It might be not be the most pronounced change. Like he still goes out right before he goes to join the workforce. He sits there and like screams in the street and stuff. But like, right when he's about to scream in the street, and it's like, oh, I don't know what to say right now.
Mhm.
So he kind of like sees like a little bit of some things that he would do as kind of silly and maybe not the best way to conduct himself and stuff. So you see like maybe the beginning of a change, and it
Yeah.
might not be the most satisfying change, but it shows that people are just kind of changing at their own pace. And
Yeah.
you see that they're not going to him and Nick are not going to continue in the same way that they have been, even if they are still in each other's lives, maybe not, in the exact same way where it's just a
Right.
kid pleading for, their uncle to or surrogate father to get a job, like actually make something of yourself and, provide and things like that, not just live off the free fruit that your brother brings you. Um, but yeah, I just did want to quickly before we move on touch on or end this, I guess, touch on uh the style, because you're
Yeah. Yeah.
talking a lot about like the way it, I don't disagree with you. I think it is strange, and I'm also like, it wasn't necessary. I'm not sure, because does catch you off guard when you're watching it and you're gonna really getting invested in the characters and the story, and then it hits you with all this other like stuff like to transition, almost like a whimsical Dylan segue, like boom, boom, and it comes
Uh,
at you.
uh,
But I kind of wonder if it was the director just trying to be a little bit more whimsical and kind of put you in Murray's kind of mindset, which I think you
mhm.
sort of touched on.
Yeah.
Maybe that was something that it was trying to do. So,
Yeah.
but it is interesting how filmmakers like try to be different and do something, not in the same way as every other movie, because that would be extremely boring. But
Yeah.
is it necessary? I don't know. But I think regardless, with or without that stuff, it's still just a very, in my opinion, like fascinating movie. And even you, when you had like you struggled with like your thoughts on it, I feel like that just means that the movie's just really thought provoking.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
you might
Yeah.
not everyone who watches it will land on the same exact way of
Mhm.
thinking about it. So
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
I'll admit my rankings changed slightly.
Oh,
I
cool.
usually am one who like sticks by it, but I think my rankings change after this conversation, very so slightly. I mean, it was just my number 3 and 4 I'm switching. So you can take with that what you will. But let us talk about our acting prizes in just a sec. Thousand Clowns nominated for 4, wins 1. Supporting actor for Martin Balsam for some reason. Also nominated for picture, writing for adapted screenplay, and an adapted musical score. But let us rank these films. I think we're gonna be pretty much in line, if not dead accurate, with our rankings. We might our 4s and 5s might be a little different, and our 2s and 3s might be different. But like
Yeah.
we're gonna probably be in the
Thank-
same ballpark. That's my prediction. Is that our 1's the same, our 2s and 3s are swapped, and our 4s and 5s are swapped. That's my prediction. But let's see if my prediction's right or not. Chad, what is your number 5?
Yeah, because I don't know what your ranking is. Like I can maybe guess a little bit. I think our one's going to be the same.
Hmm.
My 5 is Darling.
My 5 is also Darling, so I was wrong. Our 4s and 5s are probably the same. What is your number 4?
My 4 is Dr. Zhivago.
My 4 is Dr. Zhivago. Okay, so
Oh,
we're on
okay.
the same page. I think our 2s and 3s might be swapped, though, because your 3 is what?
This is tough. I'm gonna put Ship of Fools as my 3.
And mine is A Thousand Clowns. So that's
Okay.
where we differ.
Okay.
But my number 2 is Ship of Fools, which means your number 2 is...
1,000 Clowns. I could have swapped it
Yeah,
because I knew if I swapped it, then we would have the exact same ranking. But
yeah.
I'll stay true to like what I originally thought, because
But
my 2 and my 3 are so close.
our number 1 doesn't matter because it's our number 1, which is
The
Chad.
Sound of Music.
Sound of Music. That's right. So, yeah, I thought maybe you would put Dr. Zhivago dead last, and then we'd have our 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s swapped. Originally, I had Dr. Zhivago all the way up at 2. Then right before this conversation, I was like, you know what? I love how it looks, but I just Ship of Fools means a little bit more to me. And then I bumped it even down further for Thousand Clowns. So Dr. Zhivago went from 2, slid all the way down to 4. But
Wow.
I think it's also just because I the more we talked about it, the more like, yeah, it just doesn't work the way I want it to,
Yeah.
even though it looks so good. Like if we're going visually, it's number 2. But we're not just talking visually.
Yeah.
And even then, the other movies still look good. I mean, Thousand Clowns, I don't love the way it's made, but it's fine.
That's
It's
what I
great.
sort of struggled with, was I was like, Dr. Zhivago feels like it's like a number one or number two movie, like on paper, but then like actually watching it, it feels more of like a 3 or
Yeah.
4. I
Yeah.
don't think
Well,
it would be 5, but
and it was the one that was supposed to win that night too, because it got everything Sound of Music got plus the screenplay nomination, which is why people thought it was going to win. But we can also say now, Sound of Music, we're fine with the upset. It should have won. Yeah, we agree
absolutely.
with that. Yeah.
And may I, in honor of our number one, the picture this is alive with the sound of music.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Let's keep things alive though with our acting prizes, Chad. You're going to start us off with Best Actor. Who are you going to pick for your Best Actor today? What?
um, this is funny. I'm hoping you pick my second because I'm gonna pick my number one. Oh, you're gonna come up with a off the wall kind of thing.
No, I'm not picking it off the
I'm,
wall. It's just I have a very clear number one, and if you pick him, I have like a tentative number two. But I just hope it's the one you want.
I don't think I'm picking yours based on
Okay.
what you've said and what other
Uh
people have said.
oh.
I'm picking Barry Gordon from a
All right, that was
thousand.
my backup. That was my backup. That's my pick.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
I
okay.
told you.
So
I told you. I really like his performance. I love how he sounds like a
I
60-year-old man. I love
I
it. I
thought
love it.
that you liked it, but I didn't know that was like one that you would pick because this is such a stacked slate. I think for like both. I don't want to say both genders because gender's a spectrum, but both genders that we cover. Um, in these categories, I thought that that it was like stacked from. There's a lot of different ones we could have chosen for both categories, and
Mhm.
Barry Gordon. I don't know. I was like, there's so many great performances, but I was like Barry Gordon. For some reason, watching this movie, like every time he's on screen, I was just like happy. I was like, and it's like funny to hear that other people found him obnoxious. And I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, I'm an Adam Sandler fan. I love watching Hubie Halloween. People find him obnoxious in so many
He is
movies.
almost like a little baby Sandler in some ways.
In some ways, yeah. And so some people find that really obnoxious. I find him very endearing and cute, and that he's like kind of like you were saying, older than he appears.
Mhm.
I mean, he is a young person in the movie and in character and actor, but the way he acts is older than he is, and I think that's really funny. I think it's really sweet, and he was so nice too when he just showed up. It was just so like genuine with everyone. I don't know. I just like was sad when the movie was over because I
Yeah.
was like, I want to see Barry Gordon and other stuff, but he didn't have like this like big career
No.
or anything.
Yeah, this will probably be the last time we talk about him here, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. I love the humor of it. I think he also is going toe to toe with one of the best actors, period. Who is my choice, which is Jason Robards. I love
Oh,
Jason Robards.
okay. Nice.
He was my number one clearly. Like he is the reason that movie I think is so good because again, you don't want to like the character, but you like the character because he's so charismatic. But he also just is so good. I know we were disappointed because he won the Oscar for that movie Julia, and he barely did anything in it, and we were kind of like, what? I think this shows that he is one of the best actors of that
Mhm.
time, and just it really commands that screen. I mean, it is a play, so there's a lot of dialogue, and he has just such a command and force, and he's very funny, as you said too. But I think Barry
Great.
Gordon just goes toe to toe with him so well. Like the two of them together, it makes sense that they're both our representatives for best actor, just because I feel like there's such a harmony together. Where if you were gonna pick Jason, I was gonna pick Barry, just because I feel like the two of them, you can't have one without the other, in my opinion, and neither of them get nominated. So I'm like, I guess the Academy agreed. You can't have one without the other, so don't have either of them.
Right.
But yeah, I really love both of them, and I think their
Great.
performances are the highlight of the slate for sure.
Honestly, I was sitting there wondering if either of us was going to pick Christopher Plummer.
Yeah, it's sad.
Um,
Neither did the Academy. It's just the thing is like he's so good, but it's also like I don't know. I've seen slightly better Plummer performances, and also just like I think there's another performance in there that just stands out a little bit more, which is
yeah.
my best actress, which is Julie Andrews. I'll just say it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, you probably knew it was coming. I really love her in this. I think this is again, I have to rewatch Mary Poppins. It's been a while, like you
Mm,
have said. But I do think when we get there, I think it's hard to compare. But for me, this is the one that touches my heart more than Mary Poppins. And I think what
yeah.
she's doing here vocally is just so impressive. She just has a radiance and a sunshine that just very few women have, very few actors have. So Julie Andrews is my pick, pretty surely. Even though there were some great performances throughout this
Mhm.
thing, throughout this slate, but I think hers is like the big one, and then there's other ones that like if I had to pick a backup, like there was a lot of good options, but like this is like my number one with a bullet for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you heard me gush about Sound of Music and Julie Andrews. That was
Yeah.
also my number one.
Mm-hmm.
So if you didn't
What's your
pick her,
number
I was
two?
going to pick her. But since she's picked, rightfully so, I'm going to go with my backup, which is Simone Signoret from Ship of Fools.
That was my backup. I didn't need a backup, but that's my number two as
Oh
well.
my God,
We're simpatico, man. Yeah.
yeah, we're like so on the same like level with our acting performances. That's so cool because yeah, I don't know, there was just such a uh sadness with her. She starts, like being kind of like I don't want to say drug addict in like a negative kind of way, but like, the way she got like addicted to like opiates or whatever. And she's like, trying to like, I need this to sleep. And then the doctor like coming to care for her is like, you don't, you shouldn't get hooked on something like this, and just like that whole relationship, but also just like her, the way like, I'm talking a lot about character, but like how she is like a really good person who like helped people back then, is getting like sent to jail because of it, but like that whole like sweeping like romance between them that's very temporary but feels so real. Just like there was just like a sadness that she portrayed that I just really like felt for. And I don't know, there's something about her that just really stood out in that movie and the slate. So yeah.
Yeah, she's incredible. I mean, yeah, you said all the things. I think she's the highlight of that ensemble. I also think Vivian Lee is very good in it too. She probably would have been my number three. Julie Christie for Darling would have also been in the mix. Like, I think it's a really strong slate for women specifically. For men, it was just kind of like Barry and Jason, and like kind of, I guess I could have done Rod Steiger from Dr. Zhivago as well. I thought about it as a fun bold pick. But yeah, like I think the women in this slate were amazing, which is not always the case for this classic years, which is really cool.
Yeah, I was also thinking about like maybe like Liesel, the actress who plays Liesel.
Yeah,
She's
no, very good.
incredible as
Hmm.
like a standout from one of the kids actors in
Yeah.
Sound of Music.
Let me see if I can find her
Um,
name. Give her due. Sound of Music. Liesel is Charmaine Carr. Charmaine Carr.
yeah. Oh my, she is
Who never
incredible.
did another movie. So that's it. That's it for her.
That was her
Unfortunately.
only
Her only
performance.
credited film. Yep. So
Wow,
we unfortunately won't be able to give it to her again. But we could
that's okay.
potentially see Julie Andrews get that Hall of Fame title. We
Yeah,
could maybe also see Jason Robards potentially get it as well. So very, very cool. Just to recap, our best picture for 1965 is Sound of Music. My best actor is Jason Robards. Chad's best actor is Barry Gordon. My best actress, Julie Andrews. Chad's best actress, Simone Signore. So very, very cool. We have to wrap it up soon just because I have another recording to do after this because as Chad said, my voice, I do a lot on stage, but I have to also keep it going behind the stage too. But next month, we are finally wrapping up our year of the upset. And we are
wow.
going to end with the biggest upset, according to many people of all time, which is when Citizen Kane lost the Oscar to How Green Was My Valley in 1941. There's 10 films, but it is a holiday season, so we might have a little bit more extra time off of work. I will be home to record it with Chad in my home in Jersey, so that'll be fun. I'll be back in the old studio, but we'll be talking about 1941, talking about the 10 films, Blossoms in the Dust, Citizen Kane, Here Comes Mr. Jordan, Hold Back the Dawn, How Green Was My Valley, The Little Foxes, The Maltese Falcon, One Foot in Heaven, Sergeant York, and Alfred Hitchcock's Suspicion. So there you go. Those are
What
the
a
10
slate.
films. What a slate. There's some in there that are like not even Citizen Kane and How Green Was My Valley, but like some classics. Maltese Falcon,
Yeah.
Suspicion. There are some classics here. So I'm very excited to kind of end the year on a big high. And then we'll also tell you what next year's theme is because we're going to do another theme next year, but it'll be a little bit looser of a theme. It's not going to be as strict as upsets, but we're really excited for our theme. And as is announced on the Facebook page by the time you're probably watching this, I will be doing a countdown, the 12 days of Christmas. I'll basically be doing my countdown of all 12 draft days we will be doing next year. I will be teasing what the themes are at the end of the year. So stay tuned for that. That should start around December 13th-ish, leading up to Christmas. I'll be doing every day I'll tell you what another draft day topic will be, so you can stay tuned and stay excited for that. But otherwise, that's it for me. Chad, anything left on your end? Where can they find you quickly? And then we'll get the show on the road.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited for the slate. Citizen Kane was often cited as like, the best movie ever made until we found out it's actually Paddington 2 is the best movie ever made.
Right.
According to what is it, Rotten Tomatoes, Letterboxd? Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm very excited about the slate, even though it is a lot of movies. But I'm excited to talk about this whole controversy kind of thing with How Green Was My Valley. So that's going to be really fun.
Which I've heard is great, so I'm very excited for it. I mean, maybe I'm getting my hopes
Yeah,
up, but like I think it's just an upset because Citizen Kane is even better. But like maybe Citizen Kane won't be our best movie of that year. Maybe it'll be something else. We'll see.
there's so many people now who will tell you like Citizen Kane, the influential, but is it like the best movie? It's kind of dull, kind of a deal. I've always really liked it, but we'll see how we go down it. But very excited for December. Crazy that this year is almost over. Just the year in itself, but also the year of the upset. Very excited for what we do in 2026. But we'll get there. And you can find me. You check out my other channel, Cinema Chad. I do rankings and other stuff, reviews, stuff like that. Check out Welcome to Primetime. Talk about horror movies a lot with my wife and my friend Hunter. And then just if you can, just check out my Letterboxd and all the stuff around. And keep watching Picture This. And always fun, Dylan. Thank you, and thank everyone else. And
Of course.
I hope you had a good Thanksgiving.
And we're going to do something fun next month because we'll essentially be almost at the halfway point of Picture This, which is crazy in terms of all the years we have. So we'll also do our recap of our Hall of Famers that we've added this year, people that have made it twice on our acting or directing sides. They're going to be added to our Picture This Hall of Fame. And I'm going to let everyone know what, right now, according to our Letterboxd star ratings, what our top and bottom slates are right now. And I think at the end of this, we might want to go back and maybe rank the slates or at least the years or something like that. That might be a big project. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but just to see and this is star ratings at the time. Since then, I know Chad has bumped up his Juno rating. I know he's bumped up his Coda rating, certain things. And West Side Story, even certain movies where we've kind of been oh, maybe that is better or worse than I thought it was. But I think it'll be fun to share just where right now what our top slates are and bottom slates are. I'll do top 10, bottom 10 just to see. I think that'd be fun. But otherwise, that's it for me. Find me at Dylan_Randazzo at Letterboxd, Dill Movie Pickle Network. No, Dill Pickle Movie Network. Wow. On YouTube, Dill Pickle Podcast. And stay tuned for Picture This. We're really excited for 1941. This was 1965. Chad, anything else?
Nope.
Perfect. We'll see you next time. Bye.
The Sound of Music, Robert Weiss.